Sword of Coming Chapter 974. By Yujing the Highest Point. The young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown, lying on the railing, squinted and smiled. Anyway, I am idle. It's better to sit back and watch the world. The sisters on the 12th floor of the 5th city can still follow xianxia touched the edge. Lu Qin looked at a palace in the high city. Someone over there had received a teaching decree. He had just set off and was ordered to Yufeng to come to the Shangqing Pavilion to see Lu Qin. The immortal monarch was already keenly aware of this person's rising trajectory. I am quite envious of this person's fate. After all, being able to board the Shangqing Pavilion and overlook the entire 12th floor of the 5 cities is a kind of privilege. Lu Qin waved towards the cyan figure and said with a smile, "Junyang Xiaonan this way." The young Taoist priest landed gently, stood in the corridor respectfully, and hit Lu Qin with the chief inspector. Lingbao City Yang Ningxing, pay homage to Master Lu. Lu Qin squinted and waved his hand. I don't want to be free of courtesy, just call me the uncle. Since you and Qin Pingan are good friends who are good brothers, then you are close friends with me and there are no outsiders here. Who is polite to show, isn't it the reason? This Yang Ningxing, born in the Yunxiao Palace of the Chongxin office of Luzhou, Beiju, went down to the Qingming world through the colorful sky, and finally reached the sky in one step, and then entered by Yujing. He became the named disciple of Brother Yu, and Lingbao City was also Brother Yu. It's a place of proving the Tao, so Yang Ningxing is now practicing in Lingbao City. Yang Ningxing still bowed his head. Don't dare. Lu Qin raised his face and said, Senior nephew, don't do this. Will be boring. It's the student in black who has calculated Qin Pingan twice, more cute. Yang Ningxing raised his head and hesitated. I wonder if Master Lu summoned the younger generation today? Lu Qin smiled and said, There is nothing serious about you, I just want to take you to see the scenery together and do my best as an uncle master. Although Yang Ningxing was at a loss, he did not dare to ask more questions. Lu Qin stretched his fingers together and flicked his fingers at the center of Yang Ning's brows. In a short time, the latter's eyes turned golden yellow, and only felt that Yang Ning's dizziness, even if he tried his best to suppress the ripples of Dao Xan and the small world of the human body. With the shocking weather, he still couldn't help but shook his head slightly, put the back of his hand against his forehead, and then held the railing with one hand, finally stabilized his figure. Lu Qin smiled and said, Don't be nervous, I opened your eyes temporarily. Can borrow a little vision with Bai Yujing, you will see what I see. Sure enough, as Lu Zhangjiao said, Yang Ningxing found that what he saw right now was Yang Ningxing. Lu Qin turned around and looked at a tall building. Bai Yujing has the reputation of leaning against the clouds and planting green peaches. A group of green lunars soars in the clouds and the Taoist officials are in the forest with a blue face. Lu Qin wanted to see the scenery of the world, in fact it couldn't be simpler. With his own realm and the location of Bai Yujing, he could have a panoramic view of the people and scenes of the world, even the details as if they were close at hand. However, it is necessary to find someone specifically to accurately find out the whereabouts of the other person, especially those who are proficient in hiding the secrets of the sky. It is not to say that it is a needle in a haystack. It is not easy to take the initiative, but it is quite difficult and extremely laborious. It's notoriously lazy, and Bai Yujing has a looking up tower, which is dedicated to staring at the movements of a monk on the top of the world. It's just that it's not without omissions. The blindness of the law committee under the world is indeed endless and mysterious. Lu Qin first took a trip to the Lizhu cave and set up a stall in the town for more than 10 years. Not long ago he took a trip to the Great Wall of Sword Qi in the wild world. It seemed to be just a nap plus a blink of an eye. It's becoming more and more ridiculous. After that, Yang Ning followed Lu Qin's sight as fast as an arrow, looking down through the layers of clouds, like a swift bird, overlooking the earth, seeing the outline of a continent, then the mountains and rivers winding like dragons and snakes, and then a tower. The majestic city full of dragon luck is ultimately a Qinggu temple built by a royal order. The world, combined with the state, Qingxin dynasty, King Wuguan. The world is getting smaller and bigger. Lu Qin's sight shifted slightly and he smiled and said, The boy from Wuling is here, Jinyu Daochang Daozhong Cave, you must visit this place in the future. The king of rice thief Yunlu, Wu Fuqigu, they all walked out from here. However, Yashang Yaoqing is not in the capital now, and has gone to protect the two gods and Taoists, Chaoga and Sujun. The Qingxin dynasty is also one of the few places where temples are built, and one of them is hidden. The purple-clothed monk who is very powerful in swordsmanship, that is Jianghu, who is now famous. Jianghu's swordsmanship is so high that he can break his wrist with your master. Jianghu appeared this time. Bai Yujing asked for an explanation. This is Ruzhou, Qijin dynasty Yashan. This Qijin dynasty has a Lin master and a Crow mountain, and its martial arts are prosperous, and it is the best in the world. Lin Jiangxian came to our Qingming world as a guest, and he didn't know what he wanted to ask for. Hearing this, Yang Ning asked curiously, Master Lu, is this Master Lin? Is this an heir trainer? After coming to Qingming world, even in Lingbao city where the Taoist officials are quite arrogant, as long as they talk about Lin Jiangxian they are respected. Lu Chen smiled and said, just to say that in this life, Lin Jiangxian is not a chi practitioner, let alone a sword repairman, but is a swordsman? Xuanduguan's son Daochang, the reason for the saying that ashamed to live before Master Lin, is not only a kind of sympathy, but not a word of beauty, but Lin Jiangxian who can indeed fight very well. The rest of the world, together with the woman's martial pay cup in the Haoran world, the first in the three worlds and Lin Jiangxian's first, the meaning is not the same. The Qingming world's first forest teacher really can only be first. The gap between the second under heaven and Lin Jiangxian is as big as the Ascension realm and the 15th realm. The gap between Zhang Qiaoxia and Pei Cup is far less exaggerated. Yang Ning asked in doubt, swordsman? Lu Chen nodded, because with or without a long sword in hand, there are two Lin Jiangxians. It's a pity that there are thousands of martial arts practitioners in the Qingming world. No one has the right to let Lin Jiangxian use a sword. Look at this Yuzhou again. Every time it snows here it is always exceptionally heavy. This year is no exception. Snowflakes are almost as big as a fist. The ruins of the ancient battlefield, see it, are you so angry? If it weren't for the Huayang Palace in Daifishan Mountain, and the Hongnong Yang family, each of them had superiors and guarded one side, they would not hesitate to kill one ascended monk every 1,000 years, and there would have been a turmoil of millions of Yin soldiers. A few years ago the Yang family came out of a peerless beauty who was all over the country, and she was at the age of her 28th birthday. You see, combing her hair under the curtain of water, her lazy sitting posture, beautiful, so beautiful. Look at the post again. The full curvature of the spring stool, and how white the arm that holds the state. Hey, why can't you not really look at her face? Hongnong Yang's doing things really is not authentic. This is anti-thief. Yang Ningxing couldn't do such a thing. He closed his eyes but found it was useless at all. He could see what Lu Chen saw. Senior nephew Yang, after listening to the teachings of Uncle as someone who came over, the Taoism will be advanced in the future. Don't do more of this kind of activity. It's too damaging. It's a great taboo in Taoism. Let's take a look at Yongzhou. This is the smallest state in the Qingming world. It is similar to the Aquarius Island in the Haoran world. Isn't that interesting? It was once a Taoist place in our continent in the early years, and now there is another fish symbol. In the dynasty, the young female Emperor Zhu Xian is building a Putian Taijiu. On the top of the mountain in the water, there is a long-standing lotus root temple. The temple is enshrined in the temple, and an old camphor tree outside the temple can be used for divination. The state is lucky and bad. This Zhu Xian is a fickle woman. When she was young, she had hanged herself on a hook with Pang Dao for 100 years. She said that she would marry Brother Lu when she grew up. Hey, isn't it a good-looking woman who likes to talk like this is not a big deal? Yongzhou Bingjishan, there is a great patriarch Long Xinpu who likes to spread ballads and prophecies the most, but the king and grandson who always likes Shen Duguan so infatuated, he is not at all like a spiritual trainer who proves longevity. This Yongzhou used to be the birthplace of the rice thief's line, but the Taoist officials who were awarded at that time will not be belittled. Why did the rice thief be at its peak when the Taoist officials and those who were able to proceed step by step were destined to teach? The number of alternate Taoist officials in the urn is as many as 1 million, and this is only on the table. Yang Ningxing, do you know what this number means? There are many feathers in Juzhou. Qizhou Zuanduguan. It is also a state that Lu Chen visits most often, a Taoist temple. Yinzhou, Liangjingshan and Daqiazong were married in this way. The Chaoga sister who was re-examined by the Taoist name is really a good match. She has become a wedding dress for others to such a point. She is willing to be alone in Taoism, and she does not hesitate to let herself fall forever, just for the possibility of allowing ghosts to cultivate their lives. Taoist companion Su Jun can hopefully take the lead in occupying a place among the 14 realm monks. At the entrance of a heavily forbidden cave in the Dachao sect, Yao Qing suddenly raised his head with a smile on his face and shook his head, as if to remind Master Lu not to peep here. Lu Chen was stunned, suddenly frustrated, jumped and yelled, "There are so many strange people and strangers in the world, is it possible that only the poor Dao will eat and support?" In Yuzhou, there is a purple-clothed monk who walks in the snow without a trace, chanting loudly, "Talk about Xianxia in the Chao Nu, talk about morality on the futon, and don't mention everything." It seemed that the monk had noticed the clues, turned his head and smiled and looked at Bai Yujing. The monk swiped his hand, the sword light between the sky and the earth exploded, cutting off the line of sight on the spot. Lu Qin said in amazement, "Nephew, see you Jianghu swordsmanship is very good, isn't it a well-deserved reputation? Poor Wei depends on people's eyes has always been very accurate. Believe it or not, if Jianghu is doing his best, a sword light can go straight." By Yujing? Yang Ning was speechless. A secluded hill with snow-pressed green bamboos. A handsome young man left the xianxia cave of Xuanhuan Palace. He chose this place. He was eating a pot of winter bamboo shoots stewed with bacon. Two women were sitting at the table, one of them had dark skin. Don't wear wooden hairpins and straw sandals on your head, the other one is more in line with the appearance of a fairy in the general sense. He wears a green robe and is full of energy. Lu Qin smiled and introduced the identities of the three to Yang Ningxing. The little head teaches Zhang Fenghai Lu Bixia, and of course it can be said that it is Sanxian Bixia, and there is also a teacher's line. Zhang Fenghai suddenly put down his chopsticks, wiped the corners of his mouth with his thumb, and said with a smile, "Teacher Lu, it has not been seen for many years." After a while, Zhang Fenghai picked up the chopsticks again, obviously that line of sight had been withdrawn. The last scene that Yang Ning saw in his field of vision was Sui Chu Gong Guanqulu. Lu Qin smiled and said, "A literary Gao Ping, scholars talk about military affairs on paper, and the defeated generals dare not speak bravely." Lu Qin sighed, and with a touch of his hand, he removed the supernatural power that temporarily borrowed Yang Ning's nature. Breathing water and drinking shanlu, soldiers are sold in the sun and moonlight. Kai Dao Huang, who was hailed as the Moon Old Man, used to be in charge of a marriage book. Lu Qin personally determined one thing in the Lizhu cave. The marriage book that said useful and useless, said useless is extremely useful, has long since been in the hands of the old man who opened the wedding shop in the small town. Not surprisingly, this matter was once again behind the scenes of Old Man Yang, the drugstore. Half of the marriage book had long been in the hands of Lu Qi. The reason why the latter traveled to a foreign land with his friend Chao Zhu and came to Qingming from Haoran. It is very likely that he came to the remaining half of the marriage book. Is that Chaoga? After all, the household registration of this female crown is that of the goddess. Lu Qi's actions in this way are not considered a helpless act for nothing. The most distinctive feature of Lu Qi Ci is the complaint of all lovers in the world who never became their relatives. So trying to use the whole marriage book to draw red lines for lovers in the world, indeed fits Lu Qi's avenue. Luapa Mountain Bamboo House, Aquarius Wufu Chui Ching, the old man claimed to be a scholar all his life, and eventually only accepted 2 disciples, both of whom were anonymous. As a result, he accidentally taught boxing and taught him to a limit. Lu Qin sighed. It's not that Wufu is not free, and Chui Ching has long been standing up. The sun rises and the moon sets are all swordsmanship. Lin Jiangxian, his old name is Xie, but he is also a pseudonym with a hidden head and tail. The real name is probably written on the secret file of the summer palace of the Great Wall of Jianqi. The old hermit official Xiao Deng, the new hermit official Chen Pingon. The old criminal officer Haosu, the new criminal officer Qi Shou. 4,000 of years on the Great Wall of Sword Qi, among the 3 sword repairmen with official titles, only the sacrificial officials who are still missing and unaware of life and death have always been old and never changed. Seeing that Master Lu was in deep thought, Yang Ning stepped back 3 steps, hit the chief and whispered, "Master Lu, will the juniors leave this place?" Lu Qin returned to his senses and smiled, "Together." Holding the railing with one hand, Lu Qin went to the side of Xinxiao City. The current lord of Xinxiao City is already Jiang Yunxing, who looks like a little Taoist boy. The former city lord, Yao Kejio, was named Near Ancient, but he finally failed to return to his hometown. A good flower is like an old man, and a cup is empty without drinking, but unfortunately an old man is not like a flower. On the head of the city in his hometown, there was a young Jianxiu named Fang Ai who picked up the whisked wooden handle left by Yao Kejio. Only he and Dong Huafu chose to stay in the Xinxiao City on the 12th floor of the 5 cities. The other 7 sword repairmen scattered into the remaining towers of Baiyujing, and soon became official Taoists, each with their own ancestors. This wooden handle is Yao Kejia's only relic. Lu Qin sees old things as he sees old people. So I often come to Xinxiao City to find the young man to drink. Today Fang Ai pours the wine on the wine table, insisting that Master Lu, who had a blushing face, drink an extra bowl. Master Lu held the wine glass in both hands, turned his head, and kept saying, "Don't pour the wine, you can't drink it, you will be drunk if you drink it again, don't, it's enough. Come on, come and go, no matter how slow you pour the wine it will be full." Dong Huafu came here today to have a drink. Lu Chen's drink is worth some money. As for Fang Ai and Lu Chen's pouring and blocking of wine, Dong Huafu is not surprised, and the two often show such virtues. Probably like Qin Pingan said back then, not persuading you to drink, it's so boring and not lively. Of course, this is because the wine shop was opened by Qin Pingan and Dai Zhang, and the wine table is not too much to persuade wine, so how can the sales of wine be good? Lu Chen looked down at the full wine bowl, sighed, raised his head and complained, "Look, it's full again, don't do this next time or I won't come next time." Fang Ai nodded and smiled, "Let's not take this as an example. When he first arrived at Xinxiao City, Fang Ai was still a genuine young man." Lu Chen took a sip of his drink, shivered and squinted quickly, "Good wine, good wine." Lu Chen tilted Erlang's legs, leaned against the stone table and asked, "Fang Ai, do you want to sit on the top spot in Xinxiao City in the future?" Fang Ai said, "Become the deputy city lord first." The implication is that of course I want to be the lord of the city. As a city lord, there must be no shortage of immortal money. Sword cultivation is generally regarded as a bottomless pit, and all the treasures that are consumed can pile up into mountains. However, Jiang Yunxing has only become the lord of Xinxiao City for a few years. Generally speaking, according to Bai Yujing's old example, this means that the lord of the city will not be changed for hundreds of years and thousands of years, but he is the deputy lord. Still a little hopeful, there is not such a Luo as the lord of the city. Bua Hole, not to mention that as long as the reason is sufficient, the two head teachers can nod at the same time, it is not impossible to temporarily purchase. Lu Chen liked Fang Ai's point. He wanted to say what he wanted, not hypocritical, and asked with a smile, "Pan Dao has a trick, do you want to listen?" Fang Ai hurried to toast and walked one by himself. Lu Chen had a mysterious face, gritted his teeth, only one word popped out, "Boil." Fang Ai twitched the corners of his mouth, "Zhang Lu teaches you that this is not nonsense. If I can survive a Taoist age of 3 to 5,000 years by Yujing's 5th city on the 12th floor, how can I not be the city lord or the landlord? If you really want to be sincere, let me go to the South China City where Zhang Lu teaches you and become a deputy city lord." Lu Chen asked, "Will you miss your hometown?" Fang Ai said truthfully, "Occasionally." Lu Chen seemed to be surprised and smiled, "Is it only occasionally?" Young Jinxiu nodded and said, "It's only occasionally. I don't miss it often, but every time I think about it occasionally, I miss it very much." Lu Chen patted the desk lightly with his palm, "Yes, this kind of miss is called homesickness. Brother Yu is like Qin Pingan who has been to Shujian Lake but never stayed in Shujian Lake. No quagmire of people's hearts can hold you do. It used to be so, and it must be in the future." Lu Chen used to be the younger brother of the Taoist named Shanqing, drawing on the gourd and learning how to embroider tigers, and set up a questioning situation similar to that of Jianghu. It's a pity that Shanqing gave the answer sheet. In Lu Chen's eyes, it looked unconscionable. It was neither like Brother Yu nor Qin Pingan. This made Lu Chen disappointed, but after all he personally led Bai Yujing into the gate of Bai Yujing. If he didn't, he just let it go, so Shanqing the little junior was thrown into the colorful world by Lu Chen. Lu Chen put down the wine bowl, put one hand on the table, stretched his legs and knocked on each other lightly with his shoes, looking extremely bored. Dong Huafu asked, "Jiao Zhang in the city, everyone said that the real white-boned person who entered the candidate is one of your clones?" Lu Chen immediately sat upright, shaking his clothes with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice, "Isn't it?" Dong Huafu said, "Then can you beat Yudo?" Lu Chen hurriedly took a sip of the wine and waved his hand quickly, "I can't beat it, I can't beat it. Brother Yu is really invincible and it's not a name. Everyone is in the middle of the rivers and lakes. Since they are in the rivers and lakes they can only take it. Wrong name, never give the wrong nickname." Dong Huafu asked, "Is Master Lu a sword repairer?" Lu Chen thought for a while. He was half of his own family, and he frankly told him, reaching out his hand to block his lips, "Pan Dao swordsmanship is not pure enough, it can't be regarded as a real sword repair." Dong Huafu asked again, "In addition to the real man among the 20 or so candidates, is there a clone of Lu Zhangjiao?" Lu Chen smiled and said, "Yes." His mother, Pang Dao, really can't answer any more questions. If Dong Haitan continues to question him like this, he will completely expose himself. At this moment, a woman in a palace costume came over, smiling, her eyes filled with tears, and she muttered, "Heartless man, heartbroken, okay?" Lu Chen glanced at the woman, jumped up, and started yelling at the other party for being too wicked, with his hands on his hips, spitting, and the drink was considered for nothing. It's just that Lu Chen's curse words are some old sayings that Dong Huafu and Fang Ai can't understand. The woman stopped and stretched out her hand towards Lu Chen, her face full of sorrow. Lu Lang, I have nothing to ask for, I just want to return my heart. Lu Qin waved his sleeves, stop making trouble. The woman changed body shape accordingly, which was described by an old Taoist priest. Feng Ai was taken aback as if it was Dao Zhu. Inside the Patriarch Hall of Xinxiao City, there are statues on the wall that I have seen. Lu Qin rolled his eyes and said, I don't know whether to live or die. So the old Taoist became a middle-aged Taoist again. Lu Qin sighed, if you want to fight, it's up to you. It's just that Lu Qin quickly added another sentence. Poverty Dao will pull senior brother you again. In the end, this person, turned into a dull youth, wanted to get a drink, but it walked beyond the abbot of the stone table, and it seemed to have encountered an invisible wall. It bends its fingers, knocked on the barrier and nodded. Said, Lu Qin really is proficient in Buddhism. Lu Qin reminded, don't get into an inch. It nodded and said, it's easy to say. A cultivator wants to maintain his original mind, just as a ghost maintains a little truthfulness and aura. People, ghosts, or immortals are just like a flat boat sailing across the sea. There must be a ballast stone which serves as a Tao-centered pin on the sea. In layman's terms, it is a kind of obsession. And in accordance with the mental method handed down by the first Taoist in the world, the natural nature is maintained, and several Tao veins of the same origin and different flow are extended. And this transformation heavenly demon, the roots and feet of the great Tao, to a certain extent, is that Taoist or some kind of shadow, put together by all the Taoists. Wanyin dark room, a fuel-efficient lamp. It smiled and said, you guys are talking about you. Lu Qin nodded and said, let's continue. Feng Ai's heartstrings tightened, or Dong Wafa's heart was big and continued to ask, there is a catch-and-release pavilion on the upside-down mountain, and the upside-down mountain is the mark of Yudo's mountain. It's only a few steps away, why don't you take the sword? Great Wall of Qi? Hearing this question, Feng Ai also pricked his ears, waiting for Lu Xin's answer. The implication of Dong Wafa's words is very simple. Since it is really invincible, why don't you go to the Great Wall of Jianghu and find the old sword fairy to fight? If you win, who dares to deny your nickname? Lu Qin hurriedly poured himself a bowl of wine. He had to be shocked first. This question was difficult to answer. How does Dong Haitan always ask such tricky problems? Lu Qin sips the wine slowly, feeling that one sip can be drunk for a day. Dong Huafu said, since I don't want to answer, just drink. Lu Qin sighed and said, it's embarrassing for the boss to join Dao Jianqi Great Wall. Feng Ai interrupted and asked, Master, you thinks that if you ask the sword over there, it won't take advantage of the land and you will suffer? Lu Qin shook his head, it's not a matter that you don't suffer. Brother you can't beat him, he will definitely lose. But brother you is not afraid of losing, so he doesn't go to the Great Wall of Jianqi. If you misunderstand this way, then you will be underestimating senior brother you. Senior brother you in this life, all he asks for is to lose a word. Have a good fight and I will accept a loser. It's just that once senior brother you lets go of his hands and feet and really asks the sword with the boss, the consequences will be too great and the implications are too wide. Dong Huafu asked, could you be able to cut through the city wall with one sword? Lu Qin shook his head, I can't do it. The great ancestor Tueshan was able to do this because Qin Qing had to hand out that sword to help Fei Xincheng go to wuxialover. Just by looking at several sword celestial beings migrating together for a round of bright moon and bright colors, you know how difficult this kind of move across the world is. Qin Qing did this under the eyelids of the wild demon race. It was not that Jiazi account didn't consider and deduced it. After all, it was the same result and couldn't stop it. Whoever stopped and died was probably the only exception to the great ancestor Tua Yueshan, who was careful with Wenhai. But these two each have a longer-term plan. Impossible to shoot, and Qin Qing directly head-on. Just like the swordsman in the world, the highest swordsman in swordsmanship, standing on tiptoes, can only reach Qin Qing's shoulders how to fight this and how to ask the sword. Dong Huafu hesitated, as if guessing what Dong Huafu was thinking. Lu Qin smiled and said, that person, this is a good question. Among the 10,000 years ago there was a sword repairman. In the past, this man's long swordsmanship, high swordsmanship, great lethality, strong defense, many and good ranks of flying swords in his life, are all most characters. Lu Qin turned his lips toward the outer transformation demon who was pestering outside the restriction, indicating that the servant had witnessed the sword style of the one with his own eyes. There were 3 main routes in the battle of ascending to the sky that year, and this sword repairer was responsible for leading one road. It smiled and said, it's still dead. Lu Qin rolled his eyes and said, hey, be careful, speak more politely. It smiled and asked, do you want to see that picture scroll? Lu Qin stood up. Walk together. It shook its head, its figure gradually dissipated and sarcastically said, Lu Qin, the mud bodhisattva crosses the river, so let's do it yourself. In the remote area of Yuzhou, there is a small Taoist temple named Xuanhuan in the county seat. With a breeze, a young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown appeared out of thin air on the street. The unknown Taoist temple in front of him was naturally gone, leaving only an empty shelf as a display. Lu Qin looked up at the small Taoist temple. The plaque, the surplus and the vacancy, take the excess to make up for the deficiencies. Not bad, a bit of knowledge at first glance. It is the handwriting of oneself, holding the way of surplus and damaging it so as to avoid the regret of the dragon and the sorrow of the universe. Good meaning, good omen. Lu Qin laughed at himself. It's just a step slower. With a stomped foot, Lu Qin shook his sleeves, raised his hand, pinched his fingers and began to curse. Old Gao, a lot of age, why bother to swim in the muddy water? I'm really not afraid of the late festival. You wait. It's best to hide in Huayang Palace as a head-shrinking tortoise. Don't be found out of the mountain by the trail, otherwise you have to spray your face with spitting stars. Hey, you're really out of the mountain, old Gao, you are high enough. I really look down on the trails, good guys, one by one. You bully the trails and have a good temper. If you have the ability to fight with brother you just pick up the soft persimmons, what a hero. Mao Jure, Taoist official of Xuanhuan, has no Dao name for the time being, and once served as a patron of Xiao Guangwen's food. Just a cook, still a master chef. In fact, the 20-odd figures in the Taoist temple, and even the Taoist temple itself, were made by this true white bone man. In this way, it is possible to cross the sea without hiding the sky and pass the customs in a foolish manner. So now the county government is noisy, and the county city dare not conceal the slightest. It has already been reported to the court. I believe that it will not be long before Bai Yujing will receive a purple mud seal secret letter. There is such a big event in the jurisdiction, and it is necessary to stab Lozi if it is handled carelessly. The Taoist master who had a formal Taoist statement just disappeared. How could there be such a strange thing? Lu Qin glanced sideways. The book stalls on the street outside the Taoist temple had no time to take them away. As for the books, they were all emptied, probably belonging to the children. It's like leaving a letter deliberately or a letter sent to you by yourself. Anyway, it was full of some kind of unfriendly sarcasm. Master Lu was annoyed and he was mad at himself, and there was no way to find outsiders to him off. In the heavy snow season, a flat boat stopped in the middle of the slow water, and someone on the bow was wearing a hat and cloth. The angler was a handsome young Taoist priest. He wore a turban with a hard-brimmed round hat and ran a bun with a boxwood hairpin. Someone fell from the sky, but the speed of the fall was extremely slow, like snowflakes swaying, just falling by the bow of the ship, spreading his palm, wrapped in oil paper with sauce and a few garlic cloves. The uninvited guest dropped a garlic clove in his mouth, moved a little bit and walked behind the angler, raised his foot and pointed it at the back of the fisherman's head, as if he was about to give him a kick. It's just that the leg swayed for a long time and didn't dare to get out of the foot. He took another piece of sauce and threw it into his mouth. The leg fell gently and vaguely said, Lao Gao, this is not suitable, right? The Taoist priest, who had been staring at that fishing line, said calmly, Why did Master Lu say this? Lu Qin angrily said, Ask you knowingly, I like to pretend to be stupid and play rogues with the poor road, right? Adopt a teacher first. The young Taoist twitched at the corner of his mouth. Lu Qin's most annoying expression on this guy was that he had to be respected and approachable, but he didn't see many of them all over the world. Xuanhuan is like that, after all, it is rare and the old man in front of him is not good. He has a stinky face all year round. Lu Qin squatted down and moved his palm. The man said, No, I'm afraid of poisoning. Lu Qin said angrily, Why don't you say that you got the aphrodisiac? The guy simply pretended to be deaf and dumb. Lu Qin asked, Did that guy hide in your Huayang Palace ancestor cave? I don't understand what Master Lu is saying. It's too wicked to do this kind of business secretly. Well, why does Master Lu want to scold Daozu? What do you mean? The poor earth-lung mountain is not thin on Bai Yujing's credit book. It should be several pages long. If poor Dao is lacking in virtue, there are a few who dare to claim that they are not lacking in virtue in this Qingming world. It can be seen that your Bai Yujing's efforts in enlightenment are worrying, so the Master Lu, who has been in charge of this world for more than 10,000 years, has taken care of what? The truth can be said like this. O Gao, you are tall. Zhang Lu is a strange man who speaks loudly, not knowing what to say. It took so much to chat. Lu Qin pursed his butt, craned his neck and glanced at the fish basket. The fish basket fell into the water. Lu Chen wanted to reach out and pull the rope. However, the young Taoist warned him that he was hot and had to give up. "Old Gao, are you fishing?" "Hold it. Apart from the small fish with fine chopsticks, is there a big fish?" "Then there will be no big fish. Empty bait, maybe even the fishing rod was torn off and it hurt the angler's bones. In case the whole boat is overturned by a big fish, why bother, why bother? Pan Dao is willing to try it. Is the big fish invincible or the line is tough enough? By the way, try the hook and see if it can break the skin of the big fish's mouth." Lu Chen looked sad and whispered, "Old Gao, listen to a word of advice, don't do this, really trust me once." The young Taoist priest also rarely showed a strange look. He was silent for a moment and said, "Lu Chen, when you are a friend, I waited for you on purpose here, just to chat for a few words, not to listen to your persuasion. Can you next say something that doesn't mean anything?" Lu Chen's legs hung out of the boat. Except for the garlic cloves and the sauce, he didn't move for a while. When he finished eating, he clapped his hands, wiped the greasy palms on the boat board and asked, "Gao Gu, you guys, what do you think? I'm really not afraid that senior brother you would travel far away with his sword, come to the door, and drop his head on the ground with a sword? This Gao Gu, ascended to perfection, is recognized as the #1 alchemy person in the world, and one of the 10 people in the Qingming world. He is also one of the most promising monks in the world to be among the 14th realms." After that incident happened that year, this young Taoist official stood on the border of Baiyujing, looking at Baiyujing from a distance. It's a kind of feeling that no matter who is looking at him a little bit, it will be more permeating silent eyes. Ruthless people often don't talk much. Besides, after so many years, Gao Gu is definitely not the kind of person who is willing to bring hatred into the coffin. Sure enough, Gao Gu nodded and said in a calm tone, "Earth Lung Mountain Huayang Palace, dreaming of dreams, waiting for the poor road. Waiting for this day, waiting for a long time, a long time." Lu Chen knew that Gao Gu's true reliance was not only that his cultivation level was high enough, the hills were big enough, and his disciples and grandchildren spread all over the continent. The biggest dependence is that the world is like a big net. All the grievances and hatreds are knots. Some knots will gradually decay and disappear with the passage of time. However, some dead knots will only become more and more tense and tough, so they are more and more able to hold one. Activating the whole body, the Lotus Root Shrine is just one of them, so is the Youth Cave, at Sui Chu Gong, and even Gao Gu is. Now it's up to whoever will be the first to push the wall. Gao Gu? Sun Huaizhong? Wu Sanjiang? Baiyujing's genealogy and Taoist officials are indeed countless. They are just 1,000 feet of red dust. Deep in the dust, the Taoist heart is dusted, especially when the war spreads across the world. Killings are everywhere. The Taoist officials take action, damage the yin virtue, either wound or die, and lose countless. Pan Dao is something. Gao Gu smiled and said, "Let's live up to the mad fame for 3,000 years. Ruthless people swear words, never have to look ferocious, it's always so calm." Lu Chen sighed, "Lao Gao, as a friend, I have to persuade you, but you can't be angry. Practicing in the mountains, the longer you live, the longer you are, and the fewer friends you have." Gao Gu's young disciple, born in the Hongnong Yang family, is also Gao Gu's most respected and beloved direct descendant. The reason why he valued it was his cultivating aptitude, literary and military strategy. Of course he was very outstanding, and even more because of his temperament. In Gao Gu's eyes, he was the most self-like. The old palace master, who has been innocent and has no children all his life, treats this little disciple as if he were himself. Lu Chen stretched out 3 fingers. "Somewhere in Baiyujing, I have roughly calculated that you will not exceed 30%. Gao Gu smiled and said, "So much?" Surprised joy. Lu Chen fell back and lay on the bow with his hands as pillows, watching the flying snow in the sky. Gao Gu said, "Lu Chen. Okay. There must be more fighting in the world and there must be no land in the world. I thank you. Then give the poor Dao 3 knocks?" Lu Chen closed his eyes, mumbling on his mouth. Gao Gu stretched out a hand and lightly patted Lu Chen's sleeve robe. "Don't be sad." In the wind and snow, a group of 3 walked on foot. The first person is a middle-aged female crown who can't see the dynastic lineage by dress alone, and is surrounded by a pair of young girls. She is one of the candidates in the Qingming world, ascending realm sword repair, treasure scale, ghost fairy. The Taoist officials in the Qingming world need to dress according to the rules every time the law is fasted. There must not be the slightest overstepping. They are just going out and traveling. Except for some strange personal preferences, they are often like treasure scales. Wearing a travel crown on the head and walking on a cloud shoe is the most common Taoist attire. This is the rule appointed by the Taoist ancestors to encourage the monks to cultivate the morality and purify all of them. Baolin has newly acquired 2 direct disciples, both of which are xianxia, a pair of young girls like Biren named Lu Yi Chiu Yui. Lu Yi asked curiously, "Master, since I'm going to ask the old man about the sword, it seems that the direction is wrong." Baolin said, "I have to meet a monk first." The 2 disciples looked at each other. In this azure world, what would a Taoist priest ask a monk to do? It's just that they think about it again. It doesn't matter who the master is, even the Taoist second child and Bai Yujing don't pay attention to it. Lu Yi asked, "Master, after seeing that monk, the 3 of our masters and apprentices are going to Bai Yujing, right?" Baolin was non-committal, smiling without saying a word. Lu Yi became more and more panicked. Is it possible that the master wants to escape into the empty door? Baolin smiled and said, "Don't think about it, master is just reminiscing with the old." Chiu Yui asked cautiously, "Master, can you ask Bai Yujing about the sword?" The teenager quickly coughed to remind the junior sister not to open or lift which pot. Baolin wasn't angry and said, "In the eyes of outsiders, of course I am asking for trouble, but in my own view, it is something I can't avoid. The world is impermanent and ping zone gathers and disperses. There are those who get together and meet again, and there are those who end up sadly." The second head of Bai Yujing, Yudo, once met 3 close friends at the end of the day, practiced together and climbed high together. To share adversity and prosperity together, proving the path of longevity together. The true words of one heart, the friend of life and death. The 4 best friends, within 1,000 years, protected each other and ascended one after another. In addition to Yudo, there is also a great master of Fulu, a pair of Taoists, and a beautiful family of gods, namely Jianxia and Formation Master. Lu Changzhou, once known as a filthy Taoist, is now Jiang Zhaoma and Zikalu. Xing Lu Zhenshi, Taoist name Tianqi. Baolin Jianxiu. Travel with friends and travel the world. The 4 ascended realm great monks are so energetic one can imagine. In the end, only Yudo entered Bai Yujing. At that time, Bai Yujing was not as large as the 12th floor of the 5 cities, only the 6th floor of the 3 cities. Yudo's true invincible nickname was passed down during those years. This nickname, which is more famous than Yudo Dao, was certainly not self-proclaimed by Yudo, but Yudo was never too lazy to deny it. From the Ascension realm, I want to be a higher level among the 14 realms. It is not only a difficulty but also a concern. The great monk wanted to cross the sky and couldn't strive for it. Just look at Daoxing. It may be available at your fingertips, and it may be more difficult than reaching the sky. In the end, both Lu Changzhou and Xing Lu died under Yudo Jian. Therefore, every time Baolin retreats to refine his sword, and every time he leaves the customs, he will go straight to Bai Yujing, lose with Yu Duwenjian, and then go to retreat. For thousands of years she has asked Jian many times. The whole world knows that she will lose without a doubt, even I am afraid she knows it well, but it seems that there is nothing else to do except this. Just to seek revenge with Yudo. She has an obsession. Everyone in the world can kill Xing Lu, but you can't kill it. Because her Taoist companion Xing Lu is a fellow villager with Yudo. It can even be said that Xing Lu was Yudo's first leader. In the subsequent road repairs it was for Yudo. Xing Lu fell twice. It hurts the fundamentals of the avenue, which made Xing Lu try to break the bottleneck of the Ascension realm, and was dragged by the heart demon to the outer heaven demon, and a treasure on the mountain that originally belonged to Xing Lu had long been given to Yudo Dalian. If it weren't for this destiny, even if it didn't break the boundary, it would definitely not get into trouble during the retreat. It can be said that there was no Xing Lu, Yudo would have died a long time ago, and there would be no later Bai Yujing's second master. Is really invincible. Baolin walked slowly, reaching out to catch the snow falling on his palm. Lost the building in the fog, the moon is lost in the sky, the past is empty like a dream. I'm still there deep in the chaotic mountains. Deadwood can still be in spring and old trees can still bloom. Where is the old man? Wu Shuangjiang is right to do something truly meaningful. It takes 3 extremely powerful 14th level monks, and they don't care about life and death, and are ready to go and have no return, and then ask Jian Bai Yujing together so that it is possible for Yudo to really suffer. When Wu Shuangjiang found her back then, Baolin could only smile at that time. Where can I find 3 14th level monks? This time I return to the end of the palace retreat and I will do it. Where are the other 2? Regardless of that obsession, Baolin didn't lack self-knowledge. Swordsmanship in the world can be viewed at a higher level, because facing other Qi practitioners, they are recognized as invincible in the same realm. Even if there are occasional exceptions, they are only exceptions. Only one ascended realm swordsman can't count like this. Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, "This is not something you need to be distracted. Baolin, don't worry about giving me an answer." After all, letting a pure sword repairman join hands with an outsider to ask Jian by Yujing, it is like a conspiracy after all, it goes against the original heart. When you really figure it out, you will come to me again next year. You and Yudo, now the mortal enemy is the mortal enemy, the old friend is still the old friend. If you don't think about this, don't agree to it. Bao Lin said solemnly, "Yes. That's it. When I retreat and leave, I will go to Sui Chu Gong." Wu Shuangjiang shook his head. "I didn't think about it at first glance. Go back and think slowly. I don't want to find an ally who will temporarily turn around on the battlefield." At that time Wu Shuangjiang showed a slightly sarcasm and narrow look, that kind of expression like saying you can be arrogant but don't treat me as a fool. Yongzhou border. There is a lotus root temple at the bottom of the water in Dadu, and there is an old camphor tree outside the temple with black foxes and black apes, and the camphor tree is used as a dojo. Excellent shrine. A young Taoist priest wearing a lotus crown gave a secret praise, then bowed his head and bowed his waist sneakily, trying to sneak across Huilong Bridge. As a result, above the old camphor tree, the black fox and the black ape stood on the branch and began to spit at the Taoist priest. They were on the bridge back then and encouraged them to make a bet. Of course they seemed to win and lose the bet. It does not delay their ascent of their spiritual realm, but they have not been able to successfully refine their shapes so far, which has caused them to become a big joke in the neighboring states. Obviously they are two cultivators from the Jade Pure realm. As a result, they still dare not leave the Lotus Root Temple boundary and travel far away. The reason is not because they are afraid of being beaten to death, but because they are afraid of being laughed at. While dodging around, the young Taoist laughed loudly, "Hey, can't fight, hey, dodge again," out of breath. Suddenly began to curse, "Don't talk about justice, no martial arts, hidden weapons hurt people. Your uncle, what a thick sputum." The young Taoist priest straightened up his waist, tossed around, jumped up, handed his fists to the sky, and dispelled the spit that was as fast as an arrow. Ruzhou is a small country. Inchuan County, Suian County, Lingjing View. At the end of the year it will soon be the new year, and as a result, there is another heavy snowfall of goose feathers, and the earth is covered in silver. The small Taoist temple still has a taste of the year. The characters of blessing and the spring couplets and the painted spiritual official door gods are posted. Now the old temple has just stepped down, and the new temple has not yet taken office. The temple wish Lu Fang dare not come to the Taoist temple to show up recently. It was Chang Gung who was busy here with a few resident Taoists who were young and did not teach urns. On this day Chang Gung boarded the drum tower and beat the mu drum on time. He returned to the room adjacent to the stove, turned on the oil lamp, took out a small wooden box from under the bed, took out a cotton cloth package, placed it on the table and opened it. It was a lot of bamboo objects. Chin Song knocked on the door. Chang Gung said nothing. The boy opened and closed the door. He sat at the table and asked curiously, "Uncle Chang, what are these?" Chang Gung smiled and said, "Commonly known as junzi." Chin Song questioned, "What?" Chang Gung explained, "Going up and down the bamboo, the meaning is the same as calculate, plan to calculate. It is 6 inches long, counts the calendar, and the 6 goblets are in one grip. There are a lot of them. If you are free you can count by yourself. Pieces." Chin Song was too lazy to determine the number and just asked, "Is it the word chip for strategizing?" Chang Gung smiled and nodded. Chin Song put his hands on the table with his hands interlaced, looked up the bamboo chips with the yellow light and said, "Bo Chang, do you have any ideas?" Chang Gung hummed, "Heaven and earth saints are like iron mountains and stone pillars?" He replied, "Such as making money, although ruthless, those who are lucky are affectionate." Chin Song thought for a while, shook his head and said, "I still don't understand." Chin Song knew that Uncle Chang's stomach was full of ink and he knew everything, and he would inevitably get a little bit of acid in his speech. It's just that bad luck and the family's dysphoria have fallen into such a field. Probably this is the so-called 100. Useless as a scholar? It's just a lot of things. Chin Song wants to get to the bottom of Changbo, but he doesn't just know what it is. You have to ask why, such as Changbo, which book do you learn from, and whether you have a chance to work in a market bookstore in the future. When I bought it, Changbo would occasionally report some book titles. Most of the time he said that reading was too complicated and he was too old to remember. Seeing Uncle Chang playing around with bamboo chips, often separating and gathering together, Chin Song was not too interested, so he didn't bother to remember it. He just said casually, "Uncle Chang, Hongguanju is actually a good person, although on weekdays there is no such thing as a good face, but it's hard for us to treat us so badly. It's hard to speak so well for the next observer, right? Will the new observer deny the old account, write off the old account, just write it off and then just look for it? For the first reason, rush us to leave the Taoist temple? After all, in a Taoist temple, the status of a resident Taoist, who has no Taoist slogan, is still a sweet potato. I don't know how many people are greedy, a carrot and a pit, everyone wants to share a cup of soup. In the early years, including the Master Hong Miao, there were only 6 resident Taoists, because Lu Fang, who was nominally a temple blessing person, did not live on the mountain. Chang Gung smiled and said, "If you take one step and count as one step, the boat will go straight to the bridgehead." Chin Tsong said helplessly, "Said it doesn't mean not saying it." Chang Gung said, "Then add a sentence, don't ask about the harvest or the hard work, and don't stand by when things happen." The teenager was more annoyed with these old-styled ideas. Lying on the table, Chang Gung smiled and said, "Sit and not sit, stand and not stand." Chin Tsong was silent for a long time and said, "Uncle Chang, I actually like it here." Chang Gung said, "The place is small and the scenery is good. There is a sentence in the book which is very suitable for the scene. Songguan Qingshi left and right the tree, and the gods and immortals planted flowers." Chin Tsong smiled and asked, "Uncle Chang, I can't remember which book it is, right? Isn't that considered old and forgetful?" Chang Gung said, "It's not big or small." The young man laughed and said, "Then I will add one more sentence. I will always be healthy and worry-free." Chang Gung raised his eyes slightly, looked at the young man with clear brows and smiled, but it didn't change much. Chin Tsong asked, "Uncle Chang, are you still engraving your seal recently? If there is a new one, show me a look." Chang Gung shook his head and said, "Small tricks do not take proper business. Which one counts as a righteous career? Get fame and become an official at a yamen? Or give a censor, practice immortal law and be a fairy master? If you need to seek seals from outside India, you should seek Taoism on the road. Immortal techniques are no more than a skill in the body, only the cultivation of morality and virtue is the first juncture." Chin Tsong sighed and gave a thumbs up. "Uncle Chang, reason and empty talk, you are this." Chang Gung shook his head and cursed a little brat with a smile. Chin Tsong said positively, "Uncle Chang, I'm really not joking with you. When I have money in my pocket someday, it will not be difficult to collect the seal and help you get the stamp, but I can sell a few copies. I don't make a guarantee." Chang Gung asked, "Do you like seals so much?" The young man thought for a while, nodded and lay down on the table again. "Like it, the bottom of a seal and the words are gathered together, like a family reunion." Sword of Coming Chapter 975. Sorry for the late upload. In the night, Fengyuan Ferry slowly docked at the beaching ferry of Yuguazang, this famous Xianxia ferry. The mountains are warm and the water is soft, the lake is like a mirror, the moonlight is on the ground, and the lights are floating in the sky. On the ferry side, everyone walked out of the cabin to enjoy the view, and divided into 2 groups. One was Miyu with Zhou Mili, Zhang Lu Changming with his direct disciple Nailan Yu, and the other was Wei Wenlong with Tao Ran and Xiao Paxian. Wait for the group. Nailan Yu smiled and said, "Mi de Jiangxian, looking at this beautiful scenery, don't you have the idea of reciting a poem? The children born and bred in the Great Wall of Sword Qi, on Mayu's side, speak more casually. Nailan Yu is considered polite, and now she is hiding in the Yuan dynasty of the Han Palace in Feishing City. People of the same age fly paper kites at the head of the city, and they are more familiar with Miyu, who likes to lie on Yunxia and admire the moon while drunk." Miyu smiled and asked back, "Master Yingguan suggested that you join Bai Xian and King Sun Chun to refine swords and break through the realm at the Dongtian dojo. Why didn't you agree to come down? When this group of people and children enter the cave state one after another, everyone will be able to travel far away in the wind. Lord Yingguan has long-term plans. For example, Luapa Mountain will join hands with Qingping Sword Sect to fight for this group of sword fairy embryos. For example, going to the Dadu estuary in the middle of Aquarius Island, or the Denglongtai in the Old Dragon City, and practicing for a period of time, just waiting for the sun to rise and the moon to set every day, and then climb high and look into the distance. Broaden your horizons, cultivate your sword intent, clear your sword heart, and then wait for each of them to enter the Sevuing realm, then go to Baidi City in the Middle Earth Divine Continent to see the waterfalls and rivers pouring down from the Yellow River Cave, and look at the Dragon Gate." With the incense relationship between Lord Yingguan and Lao Longqing, Yunlin Jiangs and Beida Sheng, these things are all trivial matters. Nailan Yu twitched the corners of his mouth and gave an honest reason, "Master can't bear me, I can't bear Master." Changming smiled slightly and rubbed the little girl's head, "I'm reluctant." There are thousands of roads to practice swordsmanship, and Changxing doesn't think that Nalan you must stay in Shindu Mountain. She has her own means to make this eldest disciple's kendo achievement equal to that of her peers. Of course Chai Wu is an exception. Miyu remembered the incident and said, Nalan Xuanhuan is now the new suzerain of the Rain Dragon sect, so I have time to visit relatives? I can accompany you to travel across the sea. I heard that there is a reed flower in a cave of good fortune. Island, the moonlight is also extremely beautiful. In terms of seniority, do you have to call Nalan Xuanhuan a grandmother? Among the 9 sword immortal embryos, even the fools could see that the hidden officer was the most distressed to Nalan Yuyu and Yao Xiaoyan, a small accountant and a little confused, but he was not partial to the matter. Chengdu is the leading big ferry in the south of Tongjishou. It is said to be a ferry, but it is no less than a county town. After years of careful construction by craftsmen on the mountain, it has been repaired as new. The ferry is mostly planted with immortal plants and trees, and it is evergreen in all seasons. Coupled with the stone used to build the Chengdu building, it is almost green and glazed. More than 30 ferries docked at Chengdu at the same time, which itself is a manifestation of the heritage of the sect. Wei Wenlong sighed, without more than 100 years, it would be difficult for King Shangdu to reach the scale of Chengdu. Xiao Poxian overlooked the ferry, the lights were brilliant, the street was bright as day, there was a lot of traffic coming and going. In the final analysis, it was nothing more than people and money. Said, the most difficult thing to gather is popularity, especially when it comes to money and credit. Yuguizong. It is the well-deserved top spot of Tong Yezhou. Compared with our Qingping sword sect, there is still a big gap. This is normal. With the support of the upper sect and the management of sect master Cui, it is not that there are no latecomers. Possible. Xiao Poxian Hui disembarked on the Rin River on the way back from Fengyuan Ferry. This time, in addition to taking a large amount of Guyu money from the Zhongmen treasury, Cui Dongshan also gave him more than 10 pieces in private. The treasures on the mountain used to gather the mountains, rivers and air, and the establishment of the country in Fengchan have become clear. Everything is difficult at the beginning. With this fairy money and magic treasures, it will not be too stretched, and the money must be returned, not counting interest. That's it. As for the debt of human kindness, in fact I have already owed 3 debts. I fled all the way back then and finally took refuge in Luopao Mountain. It was a sum to help establish a country on the Rin River in a foreign land, and it can also be regarded as the restoration of the old Zhuang dynasty in Aquarius Island. Guizhou is the second one. Next, Wu Yi, the founder of Xiang Mansion, brought a group of direct descendants. She is willing to take the initiative to serve as a real person to protect the country, which is another big debt of gratitude. Wei Wenlong said, originally belonged to Tongye sect, large and small, with dozens or hundreds of fortunes, except for those few lifelines, which were reluctantly in Tongye sect's hands, and almost all the rest took the initiative to run to Jade Guizhou. Here. Xiao Poxian smiled and said, so there is still a vision in the Confucian temple, let the abbot of Zhoushan be the Wuxia Academy, lest the Yuguizong form a dominant pattern. Wei Wenlong has a stable personality, and it is rare to have friends with people other than young hidden officials. He smiled and said, Xiao Feng, you are now a swordsman in the Yuan Yingjing realm. When Dugu Minglong establishes a country, if you can rank in the 5 realms, you will also be the founder of a sect. The meaning in the title is that at that time, one country and one sect will support each other, and it will definitely not be difficult to gain a firm foothold in Tongjishou. The future can be expected, and I wish Xiaoyang every success. Xiao Poxian clenched his fists and thanked, if there is such a day, I will invite Mr. Wei to drink. The woman now renamed Dugu Minglong, the future emperor of the new kingdom, although probably because she has known Shanzhu Qin for a long time, she does not appear to be very enthusiastic and attentive on Qin Pingyan's side, but she follows her true identity. Xiao Poxian, the prince of the fallen country, lived together on Luapa Mountain for a long time. Even though she did not meet the accountant from Chunfan's High in the inverted mountain, she did not meet many times, but she was close to each other. Now, when she heard the words, she also clasped her fists and said sincere thanks. Thanks Mr. Wei for taking care of him a lot over the years, welcome Mr. Wei to come and visit often. Wei Wenlong said sternly, thanks Lord Yingguan was not present at the moment and didn't see this scene, otherwise I would have to be recorded. Dugu Minglong was pure and innocent, she couldn't answer for a while. Xiao Poxian had to explain with a smile. Mr. Wei is joking that you never have a good face on the mountain master's side, but you are on Mr. Wei's side. So nice to talk about, she smiled and said, Master Qinshan's temperament is not so small. Xiao Poxian said with a smile, This kind words I implore Mr. Wei to tell Shanju Chen all the way around. Dugu Menglong smiled. I don't think about it, it's my sincere words, Mr. Wei doesn't need to tell me, otherwise it will change the taste. Wei Wenlong nodded and said, don't worry, Lord Yingguan is like Ming Jinger, and he understands it. Once I came to the accountant to chat and said that Miss Meng can follow Xiaofeng all the way, never give up, never complained, no anyone can do it, drink bitter wine to strengthen their courage and hardship to nourish their qi, there will always be another village in the dark. Dugu Menglong was stunned for a while. I thought there were only some of the comments that made people worry. Wei Wenlong shook his head. The stars rotate with each other, and the yin and yang are greatly transformed. They do not revolve around one person. The sun and the moon are moving, and they are not only brilliant for one person. Each has its own life and destiny. Xiao Poxian smiled and said, I heard the words of Master Qin Shanju. Looking at the beautiful beaching fairy, Xiao Poxian was in a peaceful mood. In the spring, the natural embrace of the sky, and in the autumn, the different tunes of the sky, the flowers bloom and fall again. The Fengyuan ferry docked at Chengdu tonight, of course not to show off Luo Peishan's wealth. The ferry now needs to cross 3 continents, loading and unloading goods at every ferry. In addition, reconciliation is also required. Usually Chong Chioha Zhang Jiajin and Jia Sheng, the second manager of Fengyuan ferry, appeared together and were responsible for connecting with Chengdu. After all, Wei Wenlong was the accountant of the previous sect. According to the usual rules on the mountain, it is not advisable to intervene in the financial affairs of the next sect. Zhang Jiajin is also a member of Luopao mountain genealogy. It is more of an experience of being brought by Zhong Qiu, and an inheritance. There are more than Taoist tricks and techniques. As for Jia Lao Xinxian, there is an old man in the family who has a treasure, otherwise the cultivation realm will only talk about the world of human relationships. According to Cui Dongshan, at least it must start in the Ascension realm. Generally speaking, when handing over goods and checking account books with Chengdu, the passing ferry steward disembarked and went to the door. This is also a tribute to Yu Guizong. According to Chief Mistemper, Chengdu will be broken. This is a case in point. In fact, Chengdu doesn't have this meaning. It's quite a headache because of this. Of course, he is willing to take the initiative to show goodwill to Luo Peishan, or the hidden official Chen Pingan, and he is worried about Yuguizang Xinzhuan Peak. The Ancestor Hall is responsible, but it would be ridiculous to tell Xinzhuan Peak for such a trivial matter. There are indeed many twists and turns in the landscape and officialdom. Fortunately, Fengyuan ferry had passed by this place for the first time before, and Chong Qiu and Jia Xing quickly disembarked, which made the old monks in charge of Chengdu feel relieved. In a billing room in Chengdu on the side of Fengyuan ferry, compared to the 3 familiar faces that had appeared a few times before, there were 3 more guests tonight. Among them was the Mi Jianxian who used to pass by Chengdu and never got off the boat. There was also a man in a green shirt and a long coat, and a black-clothed girl who was sitting upright, drinking tea from the person in charge of the account. Old Immortal Jia didn't help introduce the identities of the 2 of them, so the stewards from Chengdu who hurried here didn't ask any questions. As for the man with the sword with a warm expression, he carefully looked through the account books during the period, and it seemed that he was in Luopao Mountain in Aquarius Island, or the newly established Qingping sword sect, and his identity was not low. Maybe it is the heir of that Mi Jianxian? Now there is a gossip that is spreading, saying that this Mi Jianxian from the Great Wall of Sword Qi is already a true fairyland. How much good fortune do you have to be to become a direct disciple of a great sword immortal? It's a great blessing that I can't even imagine. The man in the blue shirt also raised a few questions about extremely professional accounting. Everyone in the room was a veteran, and he was a connoisseur at first sight, so a layman would definitely not be able to ask such questions. Qin Pingan didn't sit for a long time. After reading the accounts, he took Xiaomi Mi and Mi De Jiangxian to leave together. Immortal Jia was just about to get up when Qin Pingan smiled and reached out and pressed a few times, indicating that he didn't need to send it. Immortal Jia continued to pin his to the chair. This scene, by Chengdu, who was very good at observing words and expressions, was another crime. Muttering, "Is it possible that I neglected the honored guest?" Especially when they saw that the blue-shirt guest was the first to step out of the threshold, and Mi De Jiangxian followed behind, and the few people who were interested in Chengdu in the house were completely stunned. When the 3 of them left the account, the old cultivator who was the leader of Beaching Ferry asked softly, "Brother Jia, who is this son?" Jia Sheng stroked his beard and said with a smile, "To be honest, of course it's our Luoluo Mountains Shanju Chen. You may not know, but Chen Shanju has the most respect for the accountant in his life, so this time the ferry docked, Xianxia, no matter how busy the Lord is, he still has to come and meet with a few old brothers. This is just when he was on the way and the mountain master said that he was half with you all, so I took the opportunity to tell the mountain master. The general resume of everyone, the mountain master has listened carefully, and has already memorized them one by one. As for why he did not report his identity, of course, it is not that my mountain master intends to take the air, just because the mountain master is a past person, and he is familiar with abacus and ledger. I know best that accounting is a delicate job, and I really don't want you to be distracted by polite greetings. Zhong Qiu drank tea and remained silent. Zhang Jiazhen bowed her head to settle accounts, admiring her heart. Zhou Mili didn't intend to get off the boat at first, she thought it would be good to lie on the railing and watch the scenery, but the good man said that she wanted to have a late-night snack, so she secretly weighed her money bag. She still had 1,000 troops under her command. 1 Mali, can you lose to a table of wine and vegetables? Get. But she still left the golden pole on the Fengyuan ferry. So tonight, a little girl in black, carrying a small bamboo box and holding a walking stick, walked in the middle. Ha fox fake tiger majesty. The good man on the side, the mountain master, has a hosta on his head, a blue shirt, long coat and cloth shoes and a sword on his back. In a snow-white robe with an excellent appearance and a sword. A sword-raising gourd named Haoyang hangs from his waist. A leisurely stroll, the Grand Master bearing. A lazy attitude, the skin is brilliant. Not to be trifled. Even at night, Baichengde Street was still crowded and bustling, and I was a little more curious about the identity of that little girl. Could it be that in a certain fairy mansion, that kind of old master who has achieved Taoism and rejuvenated his youth? When you go out, you have to master several skills of watching qi, wearing clothes, especially the style of robes, as well as those accessories that can surface your sect in immortal status, are all about it. Chen Pinggan joked. It seems that it is too far away from Beipingzu, so I walked so struttingly without using any tricks, and no one recognized me. De Jiangxian. Zhou Mili asked, Good mountain master, is Yumi very famous outside the house? Miyu knew something was wrong and just wanted to explain. Chen Pinggan had already nodded. Mi De Jiangxian is very famous, anyway I can't compare it. Zhou Mili said in a low voice. That's right, I heard Sister Luan say that in Beiju Luzhou Kaik Mansion, we Yumi are very popular, and every time we walk on the road, it's the Sisters of the Fairies. Those who took the initiative to say hello to Yumi are welcome. Chen Pinggan squinted at Mi De Jiangxian and said with a smile, Oh? Miyu explained, I saw no one talking in Kaik Mansion. Lord Yingguan sneered, Ha. Millet Grain is full of doubts. Yumi, you are so big in Kaik Mansion, why are you so unapproachable? Can't you? How can I help you smooth things out? How can I remedy? The little girl can only pretend to be confused. Ah. Miyu was helpless. Chen Pinggan smiled and asked, Would you like to buy some melon seeds along the way? Zhou Mili hurriedly shook his head. Don't buy anything that can be bought in the market in this kind of fairyland, but when it comes to killing pigs you still have to go to the shop in Hongzhou town to buy melon seeds. Buy more, get a discount. Chen Pinggan nodded, old Taoist. Originally came here for supper. Zhou Mili reached into his sleeve, touched the heavy purse again and grinned, I'll treat you today. I picked a restaurant nearby. On the wall behind the counter, the wooden sign was full of signature dishes. Zhou Mili seemed to like it very much but looked at the prices in the brackets. Zhou Mili scratched his face, took a deep breath. That's all, money is something outside the body, let's go find a good family after the move. After this farewell today, the rivers and lakes are destined to meet again. After ordering and sitting down, Miyu held back for a long time, but still couldn't hold back. Millet grains, do you also like fish? On the other side of Luapa Mountain, the old cook would occasionally fry a few plates of river fresh food, but Miyu would inevitably take a few more glances at the millet at the dinner table, and every time she moved her chopsticks she just couldn't tell whether she liked it or not. Anyway, every time I eat fish, I don't spit thorns. As a result, I was so proud of the millet grains today. I ordered a table of dishes and there were 2 fish, one for steaming and one for braised. Millet blinked. Chen Pinggan said angrily, the millet grains are in Dumb Lake. What do you eat without fish and shrimp every day and you are full of drinking water? You are the one who asked this question, Miyu? Then Chen Pinggan and Millet said in unison, You fool. The little girl sat on the bench and laughed. It was so funny. Miyu laughed dumbly. Yes, millet grains also have a bag of dried fish ready at any time. Zhou Mili secretly winked at Miyu. The confused account in front of him must have turned the page on the good man mountain master's side. Chen Pinggan asked for an extra wine glass, so that the millet grains could drink a little to satisfy his cravings. In fact, when Pei Qian was a child she was also greedy for wine, but it was not because she really liked to drink. She just wanted to show that she was not young and could drink, but at that time, Qin Pingan was very strict. Now do you want chestnuts? Xiao Haitan often carried his master behind his back, secretly looking for Wei Haiyang, punching together, just drinking water and drinking. Zhou Mili took a sip of wine every time and gave a soft wow, good wine is good wine, so he must exclaim and show his respect. If you want to drink tea, the attention is different. You have to hold the cup in both hands, nod lightly and hum. These are all jianghu doorways that Zhou Mili has figured out by himself. Halfway through the meal, the patriarch of Yuguazong worshipped Wang Ji, and brought Qiu Ji, the master of Jui Peak, and a pair of young swordsmen who looked like by men, brothers and sisters Wei Gusu and Wei Xianyu, and came to the restaurant together. There was an uproar in the restaurant. Today the monks in the upper 5 realms of Tongye continent are rare and rare. As for the direct disciple of the great sword immortal Wei Ying, who is highly valued, there is also some speculation about that child. It may be the genius sword cultivator from Jiuifeng. Wang Ji clasped his fists and said with a smile, Master Qinshan, we just happened to have something to deal with at Bai Chengdu. I heard that the Fengyuan ferry was docked, so I rushed over. I was very disturbed. In Tongye continent in the past, there were as many cross-continental ferries as there were ascension cultivators. Now there are 2 cross-continental ferries here. There are 2 on Beiju Luzhou, and there are 2 on Beipingzu. One is the Fengyuan ferry from Luopao Mountain, and the other is from the Fu family in Lialongqing. Anyway, they're all very good. Recognize. Qin Pingan stood up and returned the salute. Mr. Wang, brother Nianjiu, Miss Wei. Miyu just put a chopstick in his mouth, but he was too lazy to get up, so he just raised his hand and clasped his fist. Qin Shanju and Zhou Mili sat on a bench. Miyu took one, and there were only 2 benches left. Wang Ji took the lead, sitting opposite Qin Pingan. Wei Gusu stood still, and so did his junior sister Wei Xianyu, but she had already moved first and stood beside the bench near Miyu. Wei Xianyu reminded softly, Senior brother, sit down, what are you doing? Wei Gusu had to sit beside Wang Ji. Wei Xianyu smiled and said, Mi Jianxian, we meet again. Miyu nodded with a smile. Wei Gusu took a sip of wine. In fact, I haven't had a drink yet and am already heartbroken. The old sect master Jiang has always been a nonsense. How can he just mention this kind of love between men and women, in such a general sentence? Miyu is also self-aware of suffering. With the presence of the hidden official, he really was completely useless in martial arts. Qin Pingan glanced at Miyu without a trace. Miyu had already straightened his waist and sat upright, like a gentleman who did not touch his body in the middle of 100 flowers. Wang Ji's eyes are strange, a sword cultivator in the immortal realm, is he so unremarkable? If it weren't for the nickname of Ms. Waist, he was famous and could not be faked. Otherwise Wang Ji would have doubted whether Miyu was a local sword cultivator of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. Wang Ji asked, Master Qinshan, we have eaten and found a quiet place to chat? The entire Bai Chengdu is the private property of Yuguazong. It has always been rented but not sold. Every year, it is not a small sum of money to collect rent from various immortal houses and the courts of various countries that open and do business here. Qin Pingan shook his head and smiled, Don't be so troublesome, let's chat while eating. Wang Ji said in his heart, that Baozhai is going to participate in the excavation of Dadu, using 4,000 grain rain money as a deposit. Xinjuan Peak Patriarch Hall has already received the letter from your Feijin, and just 2 days ago, it was specially opened. There was a discussion, and there was not much objection, and now Sect Master Wei has been notified, at least in the secret letter. The meaning of Zhu Shitang's side has been clearly stated, and the vast majority are still in favor of this matter. It is an unwritten rule on the mountain that the content of the discussions in the Zhu Shitang, no matter how big or small, should not be easily disclosed to outsiders. Furthermore, regarding the temporary intervention of Baozhai, Xingping Jianzong is actually saying hello to outsiders, which is to take care of Yuguazong in face. But the most important thing is the way of cooperation of Baozhai, which does not involve too many established patterns, like adding bricks and pieces and icing on the cake. Otherwise, let alone Yuguazong, I am afraid that De Kuan-Yao will be the first to object. Qin Pingan put chopsticks and dishes for the millet, picked up the wine bowl by himself, bumped gently with Wang Ji and said with a smile, On Xinjuan Peak, the objection of the Zhu Shitang is a little bigger and it's not a bad thing. I look at the burden. Zhai seems to be a little mentally prepared. Wang Ji immediately understood and drank with Qin Shanju. Miyu has gained a lot of knowledge again and it's really an old way for a scholar to do business. Qin Pingan said, In any case, Baofuzi is a business and has a good reputation on the mountain and down the mountain. It is a golden signboard that has accumulated a lot of reputation for many years, and I think the focus of Baofuzi is still the future. Tongya to the south of the new Dadu continental world, it is inevitable to have frequent contacts with Jade Guizhong in the future. I have already met the old patriarch of Baozhai, Senior Zhang. To be able to do this business, naturally there is no shortage of shrewdness and skills, but I think Senior Zhang is still in the future. Xuanhuan Peak might as well be more straightforward. Wang Ji nodded and said with a smile, it's roughly there. After that, Qin Pingan chatted with Qiu Ji a few more words. It seemed that the peak master of Jui Peak had already exchanged letters with Bai Xian several times not long after returning to the sect. Share the same difficulties. The two sides met by chance and they had a great conversation. They were full of wine and food. During the period, Zhou Li went to ask for an extra pot of wine. When Qin Pingan got up and planned to let Miu settle the account, Wang Ji smiled and said, when we arrive in Bai Qingdu, there is no reason to pay for a meal. Wei Gusu immediately got up and said, I'll go to check out. Zhou Li smiled shyly and said, Immortal Master Wang, I've settled the bill. Qin Pingan nodded with a smile. Wang Ji had to give up, left the restaurant. Wang Ji took Qiu Ji and the others away from Bai Chengdu, and sacrificed a talisman boat to return to Jade Guizhong overnight. Qin Pingan smiled and asked, how much did it cost? Zhou Li stretched out 3 fingers. Qin Pingan was shocked. 3 small summer money? If the rebellion is not successful, kill the pig. Let's go ask for an explanation. Zhou Li grinned. Qin Pingan patted the little girl's head and said earnestly, me and I, are you a pig head, can you pay me obediently? Miu was speechless. Lord Yingguan, isn't your acting too clumsy? Wrong. It's no money. Never thought that the grains of millet would be triumphant, and he laughed. If it wasn't for the pot of Xinjia wine I ordered last, the money for less than 2 snows would be enough. It doesn't matter if Shui spends money, they are all anonymous disciples. If you go down the mountain, you can go down the mountain. You should work hard and practice your own way. It depends on who you are in the future. Xiaoshu money, passed down by the patriarch, each one has a name and a surname on Zhou Li's side. Guyu money, oh that's amazing, but it's a pity that the millet grains have been saved for so long, and I haven't been able to save a grain of rain money. Shi, Pei Qian, and Sister Nuanshu, each of them has 3 money pots, each with 3 mountains of money, all of which are placed on Sister Nuanshu's side. Separate copper coins, gold and silver coins, and fairy coins. The little girl suddenly felt a little guilty. Good man Xuanhuan, in fact, I bought the cheapest wine in the restaurant. The other kinds of Xinjia wine are too expensive, I can't bear it. Miu just wanted to comfort a few words, don't worry etc. The courtesy is light and affectionate, and it already gives a lot of face. If Wang Ji can drink a pot of wine, it is time to burn high incense. As a result, Lord Yingguan was different. He rubbed the head of the millet grains and joked, why are you so stingy? Where did the big water monster of the dumb lake who persuaded me to buy a bunch of bells with Guyes money? Millet grinned, frugal and thrifty at home. Qin Pingan nodded and said, like me, it's not that the whole family does not enter the house. Miu clasped the back of his head with both hands, and occasionally a woman steals his gaze. We mi de jiangxian never strayed. Good man mountain master, where is it that a meal costs 2 or 3 small summer money? Is it really there? Yes, why not? Not to mention Xiaoshu money, there are meals that spend Guyu money, tsk, every chopstick goes down, it is to eat fairy money. Can't you lift the chopsticks? Qin Pingan raised his face, raised his hand and made a gesture of holding chopsticks, trembling his wrist slightly. That's not it, I have to serve vegetables like this. That's really just eating and drinking. That's not it, as long as there is a chance in the future, I will definitely take you with me and grow together. Ha, then he'll have a discussion with the host, take 1 less chopstick, eat 1 less dish, drink 1 less wine and convert it into money for me. That won't work. I will drop the price and lose my share. I can't open this mouth. It seems that I can't bring you with me. Otherwise, I will become a little beggar who's squatting at the table with you and begging for money. Haha, it's interesting to think about it, just think about it. Miu also found it very interesting to listen to the conversation between one big and one small. Zhou Li, Qin Wanshu, Chao Qingqing. No matter what their status, they are the beauty in the hearts of hidden officials. It's like holding a small bowl, spring flowers are blooming, the sky is clear, there is nothing to do today and it is safe and sound. When it comes to things, don't ask about the harvest, ask about the cultivation and don't ask outside. In the heart, diligently practice precepts, concentration and wisdom and pray for blessings with God. A young emperor, His Majesty, came to a city under his jurisdiction with a private visit, and was accompanied by a royal family of Jindan. Nascent soul immortals who died in battle with the late emperor were in the capital. Today the old capital of the Deyuan dynasty has long since been reduced to ruins, turned into a ruin, because it was razed to the ground by the demon army. In addition, there was a who was the personal squire of the young emperor, accompanied by a military general surnamed Bao. In addition to Gu Qiu and the maid Xiao Fang, there were Wu Fu Hong Cho, scattered cultivator Wang Manmeng, and the money monkey who seemed to be sleepwalking at the moment. In the early spring there are many national sacrificial ceremonies. Today, Z is not a cultivator and came here by ferry. At this time the two groups of people walked to the abandoned mansion together. Emperor Yuan Ying laughed softly. Gu Qiu, this matter is very important. You should have informed General Bao earlier, and we should also make the best of the friendship of the landlords. After all, that Chui Xianxia is the master of a sect, and in today's Tongya continent, there are only a handful of immortal houses with the sect prefix. The young emperor did not intend to hold Gu Qiu accountable. The reason why Yuan Ying's court knew about this was that it was a bit of a twist. First, Xuanhuan leaked his mouth on Wang Manmeng's side, and mentioned Xindu Mountain and Qingping Sword Sect. It's true that the relationship between Zhou was deadlocked, but he still told Hong Zhou the news about that group of people, especially the blue-shirt guest who was Mr. Cui Dongshan, who seemed to be from Aquarius. Once the neighbor in the north was involved, Hong Zhou would he became interested and immediately asked his friends from all over the world to connect with General Bao. 1-2 The Emperor Yuan Ying was alarmed. Facing an emperor, Gu Qiu still said indifferently, General Bao has to manage the army and people's livelihood. I didn't know the inside story before, so I naturally dare not bother General Bao with such inaccurate trivial matters. The military general who held real power suddenly looked embarrassed. Yuan Ying laughed it off. They came to Chen Hoer's house. Chen Hoer was trembling, moved 2 chairs and said in a trembling voice, Your Majesty, Sect Master Cui and Mr. Chen were sitting here that night. The chairs are guaranteed not to be at all difference. The first time he was dealing with the emperor, Chen Jun was at a loss for words. Seeing that Chen Hoer's hands were shaking while carrying the chair, Wang Manmeng covered her mouth and smiled. She could sit around the fireplace with the head of a sect on the mountain, chatting for half an hour. How could she see the emperor at the foot of the mountain? That's all. Ridiculous. The Yuan dynasty of the old Deyuan was also a great country with a profound heritage in the north of Tongya continent. Now the territory of the mountains and rivers is divided into 3, because there are 3 members of the royal family who were born in the vassal region, and they have successively established themselves as emperors. All 3 say that they are inheriting the orthodoxy. The other 2 countries are not justified. In those days, the Yuan dynasty in Deyuan and the Yao dynasty in Dequan dared to use the whole country to resist the invasion of the demon army. The Yuan family was in the border, the hinterland and the capital. They gathered troops and horses one after another, but unfortunately, unlike the fate of Dequan Yao's, they failed to hold the capital and Guizhou was cut off. Now that the old dynasty has been divided into 3, the national strength is naturally not as strong as before. Among them, the new Emperor Yuan Ying has gathered a group of veteran officials of the old Deyuan dynasty, but many generals, especially the relatively young generation, have taken refuge in Yuan Li, who has also become emperor. In fact, Yuan Ying is suffering. I know they just dislike the official hats they can give here are not big enough, the rewards are too few, they are stingy, they are good at shopping around, and good birds choose what to live in, but the problem is those military generals who are separated from the towns. Yuan Ying really doesn't think so. Putting them in the important positions of temples and gates in various places is a good thing for the court and the people everywhere. Yuan Ying is not looking down on their background. If they are really talented, Yuan Ying is willing to accept them if they behave a little bit, but they are all respectful. It's not that there are staff who are old and tactical. I remind the Emperor Yuan Ying that it is better to turn a blind eye and get through the difficulties first, otherwise those arrogant soldiers will go to other places. It's difficult to keep the country. We need to solve the urgent need first and then wait until the Deyuan dynasty is unified to come again slowly. But Yuan Ying didn't agree, and it turned out that the General Bao beside him was a veritable short man. Pull the general. I have to admit that those who can really fight have gone to Yuan Li. This person is most willing to give capital, mansion, title, beauty, gold and silver. As long as the warriors of all walks of life dare to speak, Yuan Li will give it, and if he can't give it temporarily he will owe it. Those sites were converted into rewards. That's why Yuan Mi thought of forming an alliance with herself, but Yuan Ying knew very well that such measures to quench thirst by drinking poison were nothing more than seeking the skin of a tiger. In the end, Yuan Ying, the emperor who didn't do that either, became indecisive and the kindness of women. Chen Hoer was full of sweat, his tongue was knotted and he said vaguely, "Report to His Majesty the Emperor." That night Cui Dongshan sat on this chair, this chair was sat by his husband, these two people from Shindu Mountain. The land gods are extremely approachable. I don't know what happened, the two immortal masters and Xiao are still in a good relationship and they chatted for a while. Some of the sayings about the text are all from the miscellaneous books and dramas, which are inappropriate, relying on luck. In fact, Qianjun is still kept in the dark. He doesn't know what the big thing happened, and he needs to take the emperor of a country to visit the city in person. I just hope that I don't get caught in the Qiyu by something. I have small arms and thin legs, so thin that I have only a few tails of meat, and it is not enough to stick between my teeth. Yuan Ying's expression was gentle, she just smiled and nodded. For no reason, the addition of a neighbor with the prefix zong was tantamount to thundering on the ground for the great Yuan dynasty. If Yuan Ying remembers correctly, in the entire history of Tong Yezhou, there was a Kendo sect. It seems that it was 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. Since it was a blessing or a curse that could not be avoided, Yuan Ying carefully read all the information about this city, and after weighing the pros and cons, she still insisted on going there in person. Yuan Ying smiled and said, Qianjun, don't be nervous, tell me, what did the two immortal masters talk to you that night? The young emperor then asked people to move 2 benches over to the lobby, and said with a smile, we all sit down and talk. Xianhuan swallowed and sat on the bench with half of her buttocks. Yuan Ying couldn't help but laugh. Qianjun, do you want a drink? Qianhuan hesitated for a moment, looked at Wang Manmeng out of the corner of his eyes, and saw that she looked out of the way. Auntie, is it so unscrupulous? Hong Chou clasped his fists and said, report to your majesty, Qianjun can drink, but not too much. It is best to drink half a caddy of wine. Yuan Ying nodded with a smile, then bring a pot of wine and Qianjun can drink it by himself. Yuan Ying and Guqiu said, I have seen what you have done in this city, Guqiu. It is up to you to temporarily fill the missing state city god temple that sits here, and wait until I rebuild the capital one day. Forget it. They'll talk about it later and I want talk big here. Guqiu nodded silently. Yuan Ying originally wanted to say that Guqiu would be promoted to the temple of the city god in the capital, but Yuan Ying had never been good at such means of buying people's hearts, so he could only say half the story. Hong Chou, you are the Grand Master of the 6 realms. If you want, you can take a post with General Bao. As for the specific official position, we will discuss it later. At the latest half a month, the court will give you an exact answer. When Hong Chou heard the words, he immediately stood up and clasped his fists. Wang Manmeng, you are a mountain immortal in the middle 5 realms. If you are willing to establish a sect, the court is willing to set aside a piece of land for you. As for money, I will not hide anything. The court is indeed helpless. Wang Manmeng smiled and said, Your Majesty has won the prize. In fact, I'm just a Qi practitioner in the Dongfu realm, only a little bit related to the middle 5 realm, a wild cultivator, a woman's Taoist family, and there is no dojo. I'm just floating around. I can't afford to say immortal. As for the establishment of a school, I don't dare to expect too much. I am used to a leisurely life and may not adapt to the landscape and officialdom. I hope your Majesty will forgive me. Yuan Ying looked gentle, nodded and smiled. I don't dare to force it. Afterwards, Qianhuan used the wine to strengthen his courage, and originally told the content of the small talk that night. The more Emperor Yuan Ying listened to, the more she felt that there was no bottom. Especially that Mr. Chen who is so holy. To be able to serve as a preacher of the head of a sect? Guqiu suddenly said, Your Majesty, there are visitors. There are 4 people in total, 2 of them are ghost repairers who are in the Jindan realm, and the other 2 can't tell the depth for the time being. Soon someone came to the door and came to the courtyard outside the house. They were busy. Among the 4 people in the group, 2 were indeed earth immortal ghost cultivators. Guqiu frowned slightly but just took a quick look at it. The state city candidate city god lord quickly stretched his brows. There are different paths, good and evil, not between people and ghosts. It was Chao Qingqing, Cui Wei Wu Go and Xiao Menying. Yuan Ying waved her hand, indicating that she should not be nervous, and crossed the threshold to the outside of the house. I saw that the young man in the Confucian shirt had a warm expression, and said with a bow, Chao Qingqing has seen your Majesty. The middle-aged man with a stern face said indifferently, Qingping sword sect and Cui Wei is in charge. The other 2 ghost cultivators followed their self-registration numbers. The Qingping sword sect's ancestors are worshipped by Wu Hook. The ancestors are worshipped by Xiao Menying. The young emperor moved slightly. A sect patriarch, the patriarch of the law, actually spoke later than a genealogy cultivator? It's a pity that the news on Tonggishao Mountain is blocked now, not to mention the mountain affairs in Biezhou. Some Shanshui Mansion newspapers can only send people to places like Baichengdu and Tayedu to buy them with a lot of money. What's even more pitiful is that the imperial court needs to owe those monks on credit, and thanks to the fact that most of those immortal masters are worshipped by the families of the old courtiers of the old Great Yuan dynasty, they never care about this. On the spring day in the Shindu Mountains, the Qingping sword sect was newly established, and the first sect master Cui Dongshan. Among the spectators there are Yuguizhang and Daquan dynasty. On the Shanshuodi newspaper there is only so much news. Cui Dongshan? Yuan found some senior monks, and they all said that they had never heard of this person. Yuan straightened the front of her clothes and bowed back to Chao Qingqing, the descendants of Yuan's Gao Zong and Diyuan. Yuan has met Chao Xianxia and Cui Zhanglu, two worshipping Xianxia. Chao Qingqing smiled and said, "Your Majesty does not need to be more polite. Cui Zhanglu, Wu Zong and Xiao Zong and I have already reviewed the people's livelihood in their respective jurisdictions under His Majesty, Yuan Li and Yuan Mi. In fact, the news of the other two emperors is more well-informed than Yuan. It is only said that Yuan Li has even brought the real person to protect the country, and has set up a battle with the new Wuxia mountain lord. On the way to Shindu Mountain, Chao Qingqing said, governing a big country is like cooking small fresh food. It is difficult for a clever woman to cook without rice. After all, she is a clever woman. The master of a country is eager for quick success and instant gains, but it is not a long-term plan after all. Emperor Yuan was speechless for a while. Cui Wei said indifferently, Chao Qingqing is the direct disciple of the Lord Qin Shanzhu of Shangzong Luopao Mountain, so Chao Qingqing's view is the view of the entire Qingping sword sect. Hong Chou and Wang Manmeng, who had always been calm and breezy, were both shocked and looked at each other. In an instant Hong Chou's forehead was full of sweat, he swallowed his saliva and clasped his fists and asked, "Dare to ask Chao Xianxia and Cui Zhanglu, is Luopa Mountain the Luopa Mountain in Aquarius?" Chao Qingqing nodded with a smile and Cui Wei asked back, "Otherwise?" As soon as these words came out, the young emperor and his party were the same as Chen Hoer, sleepwalking. But it's a good dream. Ride Dragon Lane. Xiego hesitated for a while, but still didn't show her true appearance. After being held down on her head, she shrank her neck and said, "Well, now we are all a family." She smiled and said, "Thank you, dog? Why did you choose such a name? Bai Jing Chao Hao exterior scene Yao Ling. These are not all good. Now be careful of the dog's head." Bai Jing is a sword repairer, and Bai Jing is also the new owner of the wuxia. Therefore, in terms of inheritance, Bai Jing and Yangji belong to their own dharma. "Thank you." Dog's smile is far-fetched. Sword holder, sword servant, sword spirit? Xiao Mo wanted to stand up. Qin Pingan signaled Xiao Mo to sit down. This wine table in Chaotu shop on Riding Dragon Lane is now like a vortex of a long river of time, and it is like a well that does not violate the river. There is a saying in Zen, a poet and monk, when people cross the bridge does not flow. Regardless of whether it was a mistake or not, it has long since been revealed. That, Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Xiao Mo, my real body is still in Tongyi's house. As for me in front of you, I'm just a poor person who was exiled by myself. Of course I'm still me." Xiao Mo hesitated for a while, but still endured the awkwardness in his heart and said, "Xiao Mo has seen the sun." Bai Jing looked at the strange existence and asked a strange question that matched it, "You and Qin Pingan, who ate whom?" The relationship between the yang and the outer body of the cultivator, the yin who leaves the body, and the real body, who is the master and who is the auxiliary, is clear at a glance. But the person in front of him has a lot of knowledge. As for the inside of the wine shop, Zhao Denggao Tianjiu, the white-haired boy who now goes by the pseudonym Kong Ho, and the girl xuanhuan were all still. She looked at the white-haired boy looking like a demon and said with a smile, "Are you playing a game of wooden people?" The white-haired boy's eyes turned slightly, and he felt that since everyone is his own family, what are you afraid of? No longer pretending to be a wooden man, he immediately began to raise his arms and shout, "The ancestor of the hidden officer, the Taoist method is sky-high, the boxing town is 3 continents, the swordsmanship is invincible, and the style is outstanding, it's a no-brainer." The trajectory of the white-haired boy's arms waving, pulled up a stream of colorful glass, and the words that he said were scattered in the air like golden sand. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Go ahead, there are not too many good words." The white-haired boy felt that his throat was smoking, and his eyes complained, "Ancestor hidden official, forgive me for my lack of knowledge, I really have no words." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "No more brewing?" The white-haired boy twitched his nose and said with a face full of grievances, "I have to read the book, learn now and use it now." Bai Jingxiao was surprised, "Kong Ho, you are hiding quite deep. I thought this neighbor was the kind of immortal who played with the world, but never thought that it was still a hidden ascension realm? Among Qi practitioners, looking at the same realm in the same realm is all about seeing flowers in the fog, unlike pure martial arts who can rely on breathing, footsteps, the gas state when walking, especially the subtle changes in the muscles, bones and muscles of the whole body. It is difficult to hide the martial arts. Academic realm. Seeing the look in Qin Pingan's eyes, Bai Jing knew it in his heart and asked tentatively, "Do I need to swear an oath?" In this palm-sized Huaihuang County, Bai Jing finally learned what hidden dragon and crouching tiger is. First, the gatekeeper Xianhui, and now there is an ascension realm Wawawation demon, who is just a servant disciple of Luopao Mountain. She patted Bai Jing's ermine hat and sat aside. Konghouse identity is really not a trivial matter, but it's okay to swear. It's not a big sin if you can't keep your mouth shut. Bai Jing sighed for no reason. When people are against the sky, there is no way for people to be invincible. The white-haired boy noticed that Ziga's contemptuous gaze and squinted at me. "How old are you, a dwarf melon?" The white-haired boy put his hands on his hips and stared blankly at Bai Jing. Xiego spread his hands. "You won?" Chen Pingan suddenly asked. "Bai Jing, in terms of seniority, is concubine Fei your second disciple?" Xiego thought for a while. "I have so many disciples and grandchildren that I can't even count them. Whom did concubine Fei learn from? Unless they confront each other and fight, it's hard to be sure." "Tanliang, I was on the side of the Heluo River before, in order to come to see Xiaomo. I left in a hurry, and I didn't meet this junior like concubine Fei." According to Qing Tong, this Bai Jing once built a dojo in the Wild Sun, but every few hundred years the dojo needs to be rebuilt. Half of the demon monks who follow the practice path of refining the sun and worshipping the moon in the wild world all have to accept Bai Jing's love. So Qin Pingan first heard Qing Tong's talk about Bai Jing, and then he guessed whether Bai Jing was the incarnation of fire essence. Not like many bright moons, even in the great sun. Even proficient in fire art, the cultivator of the Ascension realm is also extremely difficult to live for a long time, just like the real fire dragon, who is known as the first person in the world of fire art, and it seems that he has not been able to walk through this road and cannot enter the 14 realm by this. 10,000 years ago on the earth, there were many genius monks with roots and feet, belonging to the Divine One. They were all reincarnations of gods with broken golden bodies. Although their divinity was incomplete, they were born suitable for cultivation, and they often broke through the realm quickly. But the bottleneck of the earth immortal is more difficult to break than a pure Taoist. As for Xiego saying that he has many apprentices and grandchildren, it is not bragging about not making drafts. Xiego cautiously glanced at the woman in white beside him from the corner of his eyes. Hey, he's quite tall, almost a head taller than himself. Xiego looked at Qin Pingan again and asked me what to do. "Why should I leave the near and far? You have to ask the sword holder beside me." She glanced at Xiego and said lazily, "It's not the 14 realms, what do you care about?" Xiego didn't get angry. She usually said this kind of words, and it was nothing more than referring to the 14 realms as the Ascension realm. In this way he is indeed a dwarf, maybe more than that. She didn't bother to pay any attention to a white scene and said slowly, "If there is such a mountain in the world, let this Huaihuang County be the place of Longxing. One day it will be announced to the world and a sect will be called the Ancestor. Ko Ming, Cui Yu, Qi Jingchun, the three principal and deputy leaders, Jing Juzhong is in charge of the law, and Lu Jubao is in charge of the money. These few can not only point out the direction of the avenue for others, but at the same time, some people take the lead in climbing, set an example, open up the road and turn the natural moat into a passage. It is only said that in one patriarchal hall, there are 5 great monks of the 14th realm sitting." Rao Shi Bai Jing was dumbfounded. Great monk of the 14 realms, is it the Chinese cabbage in the roadside vegetable garden? Sword of Coming Chapter 976. Red Candle Town in the first month of the month, is still quite New Year's Day. As an important business hub, there are many guild halls in Dallas prefectures and counties, with old faces and New Year couplets. The young shopkeeper of a bookstore is lying on a rattan chair and dozing at the moment. The affairs of the waterhouse are left to the subordinate officials and subordinates to take care of it. He learned from the Lord Qin Shanzhu of Luopao Mountain and became a shopkeeper. Some people walked over the threshold, smiled and clasped their fists and said a pleasing remark. Manager Li opened the door and wished the business is prosperous and prosperous. Li Jin saw Qin Pingan and sat up from the reclining chair. Both parties knew the bottom line. Li Jin didn't make any coquettish greetings and didn't get up to greet him. Qin Pingan was happy that Li Jin was so indifferent and felt more at ease. He entered the bookstore, glanced at the bookshelves in the store, his eyes stopped in one place and asked, "Why are there so few biography of 27 histories and 100 generals?" Book. Collecting this business requires perfection in addition to perfection. If it is, the price will not go up, and now there is only one second book missing. Li Jin's business experience is still very old-fashioned, and it stands to reason that such a loss-making business should not be done. I was spotted by an old friend, and the shop made an exception and confiscated the money. Li Jin gave an explanation without ambiguity. After all, this young hidden official in front of him and the Luopao mountain, who seems to have finally seen the sun in the middle of the sky, have an extremely rare preacher's grace for him, Li Jin. First, Zhu Lian presented 2 paintings, and then Qin Pingan personally helped to draw gold. Sealing the seal is tantamount to helping Li Jin create another carp jumping over the dragon's gate, out of thin air. This incense love, as the water of the Danjiang River, Li Jin is destined to be unable to repay for a while. Long take your time. Qin Pingan thought for a while, recalled the contents of the first and third volumes, and instantly understood. Most of the guests who can make Li Jin make an exception are the state city Zhangping. In the past, the Land Master of the Temple of Manta Mountain was promoted in the officialdom of Dali Shanshui, which belonged to a series of jumps, a well-deserved extraordinary promotion. If you want to say that the current Chuzhou city god Zhangping doesn't have some roots in the road covered by clouds and fog, who would believe it? Although Wei Bo has never disclosed the details of the other party, he occasionally chats a few times. Whenever Zhangping is discussed, Wei Bo, as the king of Beiwei Mountain, can cover up his words, but his demeanor is the answer. Luopao Mountain and Zhangping City God Temple are close neighbors of mountains and rivers. Of course, Qin Pingan is more attentive, so he has checked a lot of various anecdotes about the ancient Shu land, especially the archives of the Xinshui kingdom in history, plus the one in the Zhouqing God Temple. The incense little man is also associated with Luopao Mountain. It is said that millet grains often talk about it. It is said that over the years, regardless of the weather, I ordered Mao on time and was very sincere. Pingan has long heard the name of the boy in red clothes, but unfortunately he has never covered his face, so this trip home, Qin Pingan intends to have a few more words with this little guy who wants to be the chief protector of riding a dragon lane. Li Jin smiled and said, "I also asked Shanzhu Qin to see it through and not tell it." Qin Pingan nodded, hesitated for a moment and said in his heart, "I would like to ask the shopkeeper to turn back and convey a message to Zhang Qinghuang. If there is a chance in the future, I will help him and someone to ask for a military book with autographs, but this is not the case. Guaranteed, I can only say that I will try my best. If it fails, let Zhang Qinghuang not be too disappointed," tentatively said a 100-year period. In the world of Qingming, the guardian of the Sueju Palace, who used to be the young shopkeeper of the upside-down mountain store, Qin Pingan is indeed familiar with it. If it weren't for the night boat, Wu Shuangjiang leaked the secret, and indeed he would have killed Bai Luo, who was once one of the worshippers of the Wu Temple, just because the killing was too heavy and the exploits were flawed. The shrine was moved out of the main hall dedicated to the 10 philosophers of the martial temple, downgraded and moved to one of the 2 temples, and finally only ranked the 4th-class famous general. Li Jin rarely showed a shocked expression. Is this all right? In Zhang Ping's own words, he is not worthy to lead a horse to this person. Li Jin asked tentatively, "Why don't you add me?" Qin Pingan nodded and smiled, "The same is not guaranteed." Li Jin waved his hand, "If you have a book you like, take it as you like. Anyway, it has already made an exception and it won't matter in the future." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll ask Li Huai to pick up the book when I look back. I've agreed, just pick it up if you like it, don't go back on it." Li Jin choked for a moment. The little bunny with a head and a head back then was not a seed for reading at first glance, but he was very lucky and Li Jin had already learned it. Qin Pingan reminded, "I really want to help the shopkeeper get that book of war, but don't turn around and put it in the shop for sale, this kind of thing is not suitable." Li Jin said with a smile, "Don't say that Shanzhu Qin doesn't agree. As long as Zhang Ping knows about it, he will tear down my bookstore, grab the books and then break up with me." Qin Pingan raised his hand and gestured, "I have a good memory, all the books in the shop should be sealed away, so brother Li Jin, don't think about moving the books overnight. Especially don't think about finding a few trays, pretending asking people to buy books and secretly send them to the waterhouse is unacceptable, it's too immoral." Li Jin lay on the rattan chair and waved his hand towards the door. "No guest, no guest." Qin Pingan didn't move in a hurry and joked, "Yo, why are you still ordering the eviction?" Li Jin began to close his eyes and rest. Chen Pingan looked around and actually thought seriously about becoming a bookstore shopkeeper and selling books for a living. After Chen Pingan retracted his gaze, he smiled and said, "Go to Luapa Mountain when you have time." Li Jin nodded, "Go when you have time." Chen Pingan said angrily, "Have time to spare? Is brother Li Jin busy all year round? He's not too small, he's really an uncle." Li Jin opened his eyes and said, "I'm afraid that I'm getting used to it. Everyone is as rude as Qin Shanzhu Zhu Lian, the former Jing Dafeng, now the Xianwei Daoist who likes to bargain, and Kalangxiang. That Zhou Junshin who likes credit, all came to me to carry books up the mountain." Chen Pingan said helplessly, "It's just a misunderstanding by outsiders. Brother Li Jin doesn't know our Luapa Mountain. I'm used to throwing my hands off the shopkeeper and I can't control them." Li Jin smiled and said, "I know it in my heart." Leaving a bustling and lively red candle town and heading to Chituan Mountain, Chen Pingan went to the temple to find the mountain Song Yuzhang for a drink. The things he talked about were the past, and he was ridiculed by his colleagues in the mountains as Song Jin too. I am a little surprised today because Chen Pingan took the initiative to ask about many old people in the kiln mouth, all of which were from Song Yuzhang's past when he was a supervisor. Both parties enjoyed the drink very much. They drank and drank for themselves and no one persuaded them to drink. This kind of wine is easily intoxicating. Finally, when he looked at the man in the blue shirt who walked out of the temple's living room, Song Yuzhang felt a lot of emotion. 30 years ago, some people said that the man named Chen Pingan in the small mud bottle alley would make great achievements in the future, and Song Yuzhang should just take it as a joke that was forgotten. In the early spring, the wind is warm and sunny, the time is bright, and the fragrant trees are covered with fragrant trees. Chen Pingan didn't lose his smell of alcohol. He passed Chituan Mountain, his mind moved slightly, his toes a little, and he jumped up like a bird, shuttled through the mountains and forests and stopped at a green pine branch. The ancient pine is the same color, the two-sleeve robes are slowly falling down, the arms are around the chest, and the back is against the trunk of the pine tree. It is no coincidence that it is a book. I saw the incensed little man who needs to go to Luapa Mountain to order Mao on time every month. I saw a small and cute boy in red on a mountain road that was inaccessible, riding a stout white-flowered snake with a bucket. The boy in Zhu Yi sat cross-legged on the back of the white flower snake, rambled about "You have no credit and hard work, you can't be worse than me, put 100 hearts, wait for the uncle, I will be promoted one day, I will never treat you badly, when the time comes I just need to have a discussion with Pei Duozhu and Zhou Deputy Duozhu, and allow you to accompany me to climb the mountain. As long as there are many times, I believe that we will always run into the Shenlong Qin Shanzhu who sees the beginning but not the end, and then let me." Qin Shanzhu opened his mouth and asked you a few words casually. "How difficult is it to refine the shape of the fairy? This is called a few words of the true scriptures, and the enemy is more than 10,000 volumes of false scriptures. It's called luck. Do not believe? Look at the great immortal Hongxia and immortal master Yunzi, how are they now? If they are considered to be immortals, they must be considered. As for our amiable ancestor Lingjun, let alone talk about it. Don't look at his old man's youthful appearance. In fact, he is a lot of Taoist age. The founding merits of hanging a portrait in a Ho pavilion? You don't know anything about Luopao Mountain. Ancestor Lingjun and I can often meet each other and I don't know anything. I want to come to the venerable Qin Shanzhu who has heard of me more or less, and knows what kind of luck this is. This is called Jane in the heart of the emperor." Chen Pingan felt a pain in his head when he heard it. No wonder this little guy fell in love with Luopao Mountain. The boy in Zhui was still thinking about it over there, and he had already mentioned the love-hate relationship between Qin Shanzhu and the claw-fish backing Lu Chongrun. There are good reasons. Can the island owner travel thousands of miles from Shujian Lake, leave his hometown and move all the way to the desolate mountain realm? Jinwu Zhangjiao, do you know? It's no wonder that in the early years when he heard Pei Duozhu swear by his master's appearance, it was called a high-spirited, arrogant xiaxia. If you want to talk about the competition, I really don't brag. Two-way Shanjun can't beat a master. I want to come. Lu Daozhu is infatuated with Chen Shanzhu, which can be considered excusable. It's a pity that I have the owner of Kokusoso. It is difficult to even watch the flowers and the moon in the mirror. The Shanshui Di newspapers on the side of the city god temple are regularly distributed by the imperial court. Seeing the real face of Chen Shanzhu, it is hateful and sighing. But that Lu Chongrun is really good looking, he should be thin, he should be bulging. Chen Pingan really had no ears to continue listening and fell to the ground, coughing a few times. The boy in red clothes quickly patted the scales of the mount, called out twice as if to restrain the horse and asked loudly, "Who is coming?" Qin Pingan held back his smile and said, "Just passing by." The boy in Zhu thought for a while and asked, "Is it someone who cultivated Taoism on the mountain, or was it in the rivers and lakes?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Let's go to the rivers and lakes." The boy in Zhu understood that he must have come for the name of Luopao Mountain, so he persuaded, "Young people should not be too arrogant, expecting to be able to climb Luopao Mountain and worship Qin Shanzhu as a teacher. Listen to me. Persuade there is no hospitality now, and when you reach the mountain gate, outsiders will stop. If you don't believe it, I will not laugh at you when you run for nothing. That's all visitors are guests. When you arrive at the mountain gate, I will saying hello to Daoist Xianwei, you can still drink a bowl of tea. In this way it is not a complete run for nothing. When you return to your hometown and brag a few words with others, it is not bragging or drafting." Qin Pingan cupped his hands and clasped his fists. "Ching ching." The boy in Zhu nodded with a stern face. He was a young descendant who knew the rules of etiquette. Mixed rivers and lakes will definitely not be hungry. The two sides met by chance, and it was a coincidence that they walked together like this, trekking mountains and rivers together, and rushing to Luapa Mountain. The boy in Zhu has a big heart, and he is really not afraid of encountering a murderer. In this state boundary, who would dare to make a mistake? However, I occasionally take a few glances at the young man who claims to be a passerby. He climbs the mountains, and the blue-shirt tourists around him are like walking on the ground. He has such a mastery demeanor. No wonder he dared to try his luck here on Luapa Mountain. The boy in Zhu couldn't help but ask, "Listen to your accent, it doesn't look like a foreigner? Where is it? Near Dadu, all the way north?" Now in the Dali dynasty, the so-called foreigners are only the vast mountains and rivers south of Aquarius, but if you push them forward a few years, they will be people from other continents. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "When we meet by chance, don't ask about your background." The boy in Zhu smiled. He's not too old, but he's quite old-fashioned. The incensed little man said with a smile, "The Red Candle Town is a well-known place to sell gold. The hero is sad for the beauty pass, and there is no money left in your pocket now, right?" Qin Pingan shook his head and said, "I'm alone in the arena, so it's not good for me." The boy in Zhu pouted. "They are all big men, pretending to be a gentleman with me, not sincere. Originally, I thought about drinking tea at the gate of the mountain, and I felt that this person was a good person, so I took him to the Xuanhuan temple to gain insights and do the best of the landlord's friendship. When the time comes, I will move out of my identity and scare the other party. The only problem is that Zhang Ping is full of poverty and sour, and he may not be willing to bring guests to the door by himself." Thinking back to that time, when he was in Manta Mountain, he tried his best to help him match up and find a good housewife, but he was kind. Being treated as a donkey's liver and lungs, I have to shed a handful of bitter tears, and the past is unbearable, but fortunately it is not bad now, and wherever I go it is a card. Coming to a hill with a wide field of vision, the boy in red clothes patted the back of the white snake, indicating that he could take a break and look at the scenery. Qin Pingan squatted aside, grabbed a licorice root nearby, dusted off the soil and chewed it in his mouth. Looking ahead, there was a water beach in the distance outside the mountain. The wind was blowing and the sky was high. Birds linger. When I was a child, I felt that my hometown was very big, but when I was an adult, I felt that Aquarius was very small. Different life years, the same scenery is in sight, and different tastes are in my heart. The boy in Zhu was silent for a moment, then asked curiously, "You are not a fairy on the mountain? You saw such a snake that was about to become a snake halfway, so you were not afraid at all? What's more, how can my respectful face be called in the strange book at the foot of the mountain? It's that kind of miraculous. Why are you not surprised at all? Is it a genealogical cultivator who was born in a high-level immortal mansion, pretending to be a ranger while wandering the mountains and waters, while searching for the mountains?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "I've been traveling abroad all the time, and I don't dare to say that I have a lot of knowledge. At least I have walked a lot at night." The boy in Zhu crossed his arms around his chest, looked at the man squatting and chewing grass roots and asked, "Born from a hard life?" Qin Pingan shook his head and smiled and said, "Fortunately, the small door, the elders and relatives accumulate good deeds, as if the family has surplus food every year, they can't starve their descendants." The boy in Zhu nodded and sniffed. He shouldn't have mentioned this, he felt sad when he mentioned it. "I'm from a bitter background, I can't blame others, I blame myself for being unkind, and I've been full and hungry for 3 years for many years. Damn, thanks to my own progress, I saved up some belongings, otherwise I would have to wonder if the family has been a poor ghost who can't move its nest." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "According to the book, if a poor ghost enters the house, it can also prevent disasters, and once the poor ghost can be invited out one day in the future, it is easy to ask God to send God, so as long as we get together, well, it's good to go, maybe there will be no luck. The boy in Zhui let out a snort. It seems that this kid has read a few serious books. He said with surprise, the Imperial examination system is not good, so I have to settle for the next best thing. I have read too many miscellaneous books? Qin Pingan nodded and said, it's always good to read more books. As the old saying goes, you read to this life in your previous life, and you read to your next life in this life. That's probably the old principle. The boy in Zhui said suddenly, I can see that the son is also a sentimental person. Qin Pingan raised his head and asked with a smile, is this all obvious? The little guy raised his hand and pointed to his eyes, I have always been very accurate in seeing people. Qin Pingan smiled and said, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Qin Pingan. The boy in Zhui raised a palm, shook it vigorously and laughed. I turned over the fish scale book of the household, and there are at least the number of people with this name in the state city. Qin Pingan smiled knowingly and nodded, good thing. Once upon a time this name was in Xuanhuan County and there was nothing. Afterwards, the little guy rode the white flower snake. Qin Pingan walked fast with him, chatted with the boy in red clothes and did not idle, wandering to the gate of his own mountain. The boy in Zhui jumped off his back and promised with the confidant and love general of the Chiduan mountain landlord, old rules, I will write you a note in the credit book. The head of the white-flowered snake touched the ground, saying goodbye to the noble second-in-command of the state city god temple, then twisting its body and winding along the mountain road, disappearing for a moment. The boy in Zhui rubbed his hands together, he smiled and said, when it is successfully shaped in the future, maybe it will still be a beautiful woman who wants something. Qin Pingan teased, you and Daoist Xianwei will definitely be able to chat. The boy in Zhui changed color suddenly and said solemnly, how do you know that the gatekeeper of Luopa Mountain is Dao Master Xianwei? If you remember correctly, I never mentioned this to you. Damn, don't bring a troublemaker to Luopa Mountain, that is, the crotch is covered with yellow mud, you need to know about accounting. Pei Duozhu is the patriarch who founded the school. Qin Pingan smiled and said, don't be nervous, it's all your own. At the door, Xianwei hurriedly rolled up a book and quickly hid it in his sleeves. Meteor strode over and made a stern look at the head of the road, I have seen Qin Shanju. Qin Pingan smiled and said, it's hard work. The boy in red clothes stood on the spot, frowning. Wei Xian sneered and said, why, when you know Shanju Qin, you don't take trails seriously? The boy in Zhui said timidly, Daoist Xianwei, who is Master Qin Shan? Xianwei glanced at Qin Pingan and Qin Pingan smiled and said, he didn't believe it, but we chatted very well along the way. Xianwei didn't bother to care about the uncle who looked like a wine mug. He lowered his voice and said, Master Qin Shan, I have to tell you something. I declare in advance that I am not someone who likes to complain. Qin Pingan nodded and said, speak directly. Xianwei turned his head and glanced at the mountain road and then said, not long ago, a guest came to the mountain. She looked like a little girl, her name was Xiego. Does the mountain owner know about this? Qin Pingan nodded, I know Miss Xier is here to look for Xiaomo. Not long ago I had already met her at Qilong Lane and she has a relatively distinctive personality. Xianwei sighed, Mr. Amo is so knowledgeable, how can he have such a generous friend? The two walked towards the bamboo chairs at the entrance of the mountain. The boy in red robes rushed out one by one, and a fierce tiger descended the mountain, full of momentum, dashing for a distance, jumping high on top of one of the bamboo chairs, rolling a few times and then again. Lying there, he wiped his sleeves vigorously, not forgetting his breath, and then wiped again. The last one rolled off the bamboo chair, which can be said to be smooth and smooth. At first glance, he had learned art from Qin Lingjun's teacher. After the little guy stood on the ground, he bowed, the mountain master, sir, please take a seat. Qin Pingan thanked the little guy and sat on the bamboo chair. What do you say? What did Miss Ye do? Xianwei actually regretted bringing up this matter, and always felt that it was inappropriate, so why bother? What if that Xiego is Mr. Xiaomo's family relative or a junior from Shanmen? It's just that the girl in the sable hat did things inappropriately and bullied the warm tree, and Xianwei couldn't bear it. Qin Pingan patted the chair and invited the little guy standing on the ground with a smile. Sit together? The boy in Zhui was confused for a while. I have a small and take up too much space, so I want sit. Qin Pingan didn't force the other party either. He turned his head and said to Xianwei, let's talk, just think that the old cook told me the situation in advance, and it has nothing to do with Xianwei Daoist. Xianwei nodded and reminded, Okay, but don't let Mr. Mo misunderstand me. I think I'm a talkative woman who likes to gossip. Now in Brother Dafeng's house, Xianwei still offers a pair of sneakers woven by Mr. Mo's own hands. It is very valuable at first glance. Whereas Xianwei willing to wear it, occasionally wearing it on his feet, pacing the house, learning from that real Taoist stalker, there is really that kind of feeling of flying through the clouds and driving the fog. That is, Xianwei has a thin skin, otherwise he has to ask Mr. Xiaomo for an extra pair. Chen Pingan leaned against the back of the chair, stretched out, and listened to Xianwei saying something about what Xiego had done. Hearing it was what Bai Jinghui did, he would never wrong her. Chen Pingan turned his head and glanced at the steps. Why didn't you see Miss Tsun practicing boxing? Xianwei said, She went home but she hasn't returned yet. The boy in Jui was not idle, he was busy making up for it quietly, and silently wiped the legs of the chair as big as a beam with his sleeves. Chen Pingan didn't know how to persuade this little guy. He couldn't help but feel that the feng shui of his family was really extraordinary. After thinking about it over the years, he might really want to go back to the source. It's probably all thanks to Mr. Pei Qian. A few it can be considered that the blue is better than the blue. According to the established route, Fengyuan ferry will probably arrive at Nujiadu in the next 2 days. Hongxia and Yunzi, who were dug up by Cui Dongshan, will follow the ferry to travel to Beiju Luzhou, and finally settle down at Xindu Mountain to participate in the excavation of Dadu. As if this was their first official tour. Chen Lingjun and Guizhujiu had participated in the opening ceremony of the Huangliang sect. Since they were invited to serve as worshippers, they would return to Luopao Mountain soon after visiting the capital of Mengliang Kingdom. The accompanying Li Huai and Nin Daoist will probably come and settle here together, and then go to Dasui Shanaya Academy. Chen Pingan is going to talk to Nin Daoist about Dadu on Tongyi's Hao. I have already sent a message to Mrs. Yen Yen. The mountain monarch of Jiui Mountain in the Middle Earth personally invited her to be a guest on the mountain. With Mrs. Yan Yen's temper, she would not refuse this matter. There are 2.5 flowers, one is in Jiui Mountain, and the old owner of the plum garden, now because of the identity of a genealogy enshrined by the Dragon Elephant Sword sect, has returned to Howran from the inverted mountain, and she will walk the world again. Of course there are no taboos. Earlier, at the Chiduan Mountain Temple, I talked to Song Yuzhang about the new kiln superintendent who took over Chao Jingshan's position. The official 4th grade, named Jian Feng, seemed to be a little bookish. Song Yuzhang, who was separated by an officialdom up and down the mountain, and Dong Shuijing, who had dealt with Jian Feng once, all had a good impression of this disgraced Jian Duzhao. Wu Yuan has been silent for many years in the Dali officialdom, sitting on the bench for many years, never wanted to kill a beautiful carbine, and now he has become the prefect of Xinchu Prefecture, and he has become a genuine official of the frontier. The gossip of some people who are good officials must be indispensable. In the past, Wu Yuan's identity outside the official circle was not only the son-in-law of the Yuan family of Shangzhou Kingdom, but also a student of the national teacher Cui Yu. Before Chen Pingan was on the Changpu River in the capital of Dali, Si Jingquan, the former Qing official of the Ministry of Household, who had a meal of vegetarian wine, is now also the county governor of Baoshi County outside Beijing. I heard that Sun Chu, the prelude class of Honglu Temple, was the same year as Chao Qingqing in the imperial examination. Yuan Bai still stayed in the Huangshan sword sect, who was descending from Xinjiang Mountain, and did not agree to go to Tongye continent. I just don't know if that alley outside the Yiyun building, that Master Lu Xianxia has stopped anyone recently. Chen Pingan put away his thoughts and asked with a smile, Xianwei, how is your practice? Xianwei looked embarrassed and he said, I can't eat hot tofu in a hurry and I don't want to be quick in practice. It's better to go step by step. But in fact, if you can really eat a bowl of hot tofu, your realm will rise, not to mention a few bowls, and directly give a big bowl to the poor. It's just that Xianwei then thought about it, the realm is high, what is the meaning, the middle 5 realms, then the land gods, the upper 5 realms? This road, when will it be good? It is not good to be a gatekeeper, you have to be like yourself, you can be less troublesome if you are afraid of trouble. As for cultivation, let the true Taoist priests who are pursuing the perfection of merit and virtue go to work. As a fake Taoist priest, it is more important to read books. With a flash of sword light, Xiao Mo appeared here out of thin air. He stayed in the town all these days and he had to stare at Bai Jing from Qilong Lane, lest she make another noise. Seeing his son, Xiao Mo hesitated. Qin Pingan said in his heart, the reason why I have a heart outside is because. Xiao Mo was stunned for a moment and said, you don't need to say it, son. Practicing swords. Maybe the dojo is out of the sky. As for how to refine the sword, Xiao Mo didn't ask. Previously in the eddy current of the long river of time, because of chatting about a certain martial art that was purely fantasy, Qin Pingan suddenly smiled and said, "We need to add another person, the chief worship Wu Shuangjiang." The white-haired boy was eager to try. Ancestor hidden official? Qin Pingan nodded and said, "Then add one more, the last feast is enshrined, the Taoist name is natural, and the pseudonym is Kongho. A sect, there are not a few pairs of immortal couples, it is really outrageous." At that time, Xiego disapproved and said, "Since it is said that it is if, what's the point of talking about this?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Although this is only the best choice in some people's minds. But if Daoist Xianwei was present he would not feel that way." Xiego rolled his eyes and said, "How can you compare with him? Bai Jing, who has always been arrogant, rarely admit defeat like this. If this sect is just a hypothesis, then there is another mountain but it is real. For example, the suzerain Qin Pingan and the Taoist Ning Yao. In the Patriarch's Hall there are Cui Dongshan, Jiang Shangzhen, Xiaomo and Miyu. Julian on the right side of Sui Chongqiu and Chui Wei. Riding a Kongho in Dragon Alley, Qingtong in Zinyala. The younger generation has Pei Qian and Chao Qingqing. Chai Wu by Xian King Sun Chun. Before Qin Pingan set off to climb the mountain, he squatted down and smiled with the boy in red clothes. "I will discuss with Pei Qian and the others about the new establishment of the General Guardian of Qilong Lane. I personally recommend you to take up this position." Zhu Yitong, who had not made 100 times at Dianmao, was so excited that he murmured repeatedly, "How can he be, how can he be?" It is almost the same as the words and demeanor carved out of the same mold as Chief Zhou at Jiaisfeng Patriarch Hall back then. This kind of unique talent is indeed inferior. Qin Pingan smiled and asked, "Go up the mountain together?" The boy in Zhu Yi shook his head vigorously. "I have to go to the Taoist master Xianwei's house first to order a painting. The subordinates have short calves which are easy to delay, so I want to accompany the mountain master to climb the mountain." Then Qin Pingan and Xiao Mo slowly climbed the mountain together. Xianwei tooted his tongue in admiration and said, "Where did you learn your skills? Come back and teach me?" The boy in Zhu Yi put his hands on his hips, raised his head and stared at him. "He's a ferry captain. He is extremely arrogant. The mountain master is still in front of him. You don't have a right way to hang around with me. Don't make me misunderstood by the mountain master." Qin Pingan asked, "Is Bai Jing really used to staying at Qilong Lane?" Xiao Mo nodded and said, "I've seen young master before but now I'm still honest. I just quarrel with Kongho all the time, but I have a good relationship with Zhou Junshin." Qin Pingan smiled and said with a heartfelt voice, "This sword training is actually a long trip again, but this time it will take 20,000 years to go backwards." Sword of Coming Chapter 977. The spring breeze is warm and the water is warm, the scenery is beautiful, there are 3 or 2 peach blossoms outside the bamboo on the shore, and the wild mallards in the water are chasing the clear scenery. Wang Zhu and his entourage landed on Tongyi's Hao with water, ready to take a trip to the Yu dynasty, who took the initiative to show hospitality to the Donghai Sea King's mansion. In the end, after walking a few steps, I met this young man in white with red moles on the eyebrows. It was the second time we met each other. The first time we met was in the former site of the Dadu Dragon Palace. The depth of the city is so deep that it is bottomless. Of course, what really makes them jealous is the sword cultivator Little Mo, with yellow hat and blue shoes, calling the young hidden official a son, whose realm is high and unattainable. Wang Zhu and Cui Dongshan have known each other for a long time, and they are half compatriots, so they are used to it. But Gong Yan and Huang Man looked at the man's funny posture, and always felt that this young man's behavior was both disgusting and at the same time. They can also scare people. They are all accomplished Taoists. They used to be heroes in their hometowns and various continents. There are many strange people and strange things on the mountain. One serving. When Cui Dongshan saw that they didn't accept the move, it was as if he had been immobilized. Wang Zhu sneered, "Isn't Sect Master Cui tired?" Cui Dongshan maintained that posture and said sternly, "My husband puts one foot on the ground and one hand supports the sky, and then uses a strong iron bone to support the body and skin. I dare not say that I am tired. Hero, the white jade pillar holding the sky and the sea purple golden beam, he will spare no effort." Wang Zhu's eyes were cold. "Cui Dongshan, it's almost enough. If you have something to say, if you have nothing to give way, I don't have time to accompany you here to waste time. I have something to do, how can I be okay? The head of the sect is very busy. Not only did I accompany a Luoyang wooden guest to stroll across the Rin River, This journey is easy to walk, and it is very hard to sleep in the wind. Cui Dongshan's face was full of resentment. He put away the fist pile, and just as his feet landed, he raised his foot again, kicked a stone on the bank and swept toward the river surface, smashing into the water with a rumbling sound. The water surface rumbled. Like thunder, a group of wild mallards fluttered and flew in an instant. Cui Dongshan twisted his wrist and conjured a green bamboo stick with a Xing Qi Ming inscribed in running script. This walking stick was a gift from Wu Shuangjiang on the night cruise ship. Cui Dongshan originally planned to give it to Chai Wu. It is regarded as a congratulatory gift for stepping up to the heaven and entering the realm of jade purity. It is only a matter of repentance and it is reused. It is well treasured, or it is used as a family heirloom for future closed disciples, or it is given to those who may come to my Chao Feng to practice. Xuanhuan, since he was carrying A to dig the corner of Luopao Mountain, he wouldn't mind being charged more by Mr. Cui, so Cui Dongshan found Chai Wu, and by Xian dubbed Xiaomu and Yuna. The little girl who loves to drink made a discussion and asked her if she wanted this priceless green bamboo stick, or if he gave away 100 jars of Xinjia wine in his own name, and he ensured that each jar of wine had the same name. At that time, Chai Wu's eyes suddenly lit up, saying that 100 altars is too much and 50 altars is enough. The implication of the little girl couldn't be simpler. The big drink is the biggest. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, Miss Jigue, there is a distinguished guest from Luapa Mountain. My husband must return to his hometown immediately, so he will return after the celebration, and there is no way to treat the guest in person. Wang Zhu said with an expressionless face, Little Xia Shurifu is alone overseas, and I don't dare to ask Chen Yingguan to entertain it in person. Cui Dongshan said solemnly, You can't say that. Miss Jigue and my husband are neighbors who have met for many years. At the end of the day, distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors. What a lot of fate and affection. Wang Zhu twitched the corners of his mouth and said nothing more. Last time, Wang Zhu, who left the site of the Dragon Palace in Dadu and returned to Qin Pingan, never mentioned Cui Dongshan's insider identity with several squires of the Waterhouse after the event, only said that this person was from Aquarius, and he was on the side of the Dali court. As an official, Cui Dongshan entered the Lizhu cave, which had not yet been broken and fell to the ground, and then somehow became a student of Qin Pingan. Wang Zhu's words were too simplistic. Of course, Gong Yen and the others sent Wang Zhu away with just one sentence. Talking more about Cui Dongshan is useless. If you know more, it will cause unnecessary trouble. Not long ago, Donghai Mansion received an espionage report that Luopao Mountain established a sect named Qingping Sword Sect in the southern boundary of the Deyuan dynasty, and Cui Dongshan served as the first sect master. Cui Dongshan waved his walking stick, greeted them one by one, and took the initiative to be courteous. Sister Jigue is really a prophet. I will come to find you sooner or later. I'm familiar with the Yu dynasty that changed its era name to Shenlong. If I don't brag, I can be regarded as half the host when it comes to Luojing. You can't believe it now, anyway you'll know when you go, such as Jitsue. The real protector of the country, Lu Bilong, and I are close friends on the mountain, and the Qingzhuan faction, the leader of the immortal mansion on the mountain of the Yu dynasty, is half of his own family. How could the relationship be bad? Especially that Dai Yuan, he is also a good brother who chops chicken heads and burns yellow paper. Gong Yin smiled and said, Sect Master Cui has so many friends. Cui Dongshan nodded and said, It is necessary, rely on friends when you go out. As long as there are many friends in the rivers and lakes, you can keep 9 meals a day. This old boy Dai Yuan seems to have known him since he met him. He had a drink under the grape racks of the Luojing Lantern Riddle Hall, which sold in Jinwo, and this guy has grown up. Zhang Li was considered to have replaced Su Bai, the direct disciple of Gao Shuwen. Dai Yuan was a Jindan cultivator after all, and his name was justified. In addition, Dai Yuan was on the Yu dynasty side, and the ranking of the royal family's enshrinement was also improved. Flowering. At that time, the chief guest of Xianxia who drank together, the old Yuan Ingzhang Luzhu with the Taoist name Daffodil, now goes by the pseudonym xianxia, and went to the Dachong dynasty to serve as an assistant to a young man. He is a young but famous person. The servant of the Ministry of Industry, named Shi Yuyen. The minister of the Ministry of Punishment belongs to an old man who has a son, and has high hopes for Shi Yuyen. From the name he chose for his son, he preaches Yuda and speaks art. As soon as the Lantern Riddle Hall left, Cui Dongshan once used the body of the Yangshan, the direct descendant of the Yunkatang in Pushan, to go to Zhang Luzhu, and also met the teacher and servant, and the two sides hit it off. Deli accompanied the capital, named Luojing, which was related to Song Mu's title of Luo Wang. The capital of the Yu dynasty in Tonghishao was also called Luojing. Of course it was just a coincidence. With the current momentum of the Dali court, coupled with the Yu dynasty's rudder, even if it is not in one continent, it is estimated that it will not be a problem for the former to change the name of the latter. Cui Dongshan said that he wanted to take them to a place, not far away in the middle of the wind and clouds, and only needed 3 sticks of incense. On the way to ride the wind, the boy in white stepped on the green bamboo stick like a sword, turned his head to get close to Gong Yan and said, "Sister Ewu, I listened to you chatting before and I listened to the words of my sister the most and would not miss it. One word, since my sister wants to go to Huaihuang County to take a look, why is it difficult? I will lead the way later, why don't we make an appointment now?" Gong Yan turned a deaf ear and Cui Dongshan turned to chat with others. "Brother Li Ba, you look so old and strong, then Wanyan Laojing and you are a long-term friend. I heard that it is a relationship between a teacher and a friend. He used to be your Jinjiazu. Talking beautifully on the mountain, it's all right, life is going on, how can there be a time when you don't have a few somersaults? Since the hometown is a sad place, it's fine if you don't go back and one day in the future you can get together with Miss Jigue and settle down on our Tonghishao side. Well, if you go to Aquarius you can also go to Aquarius. I have more friends over there. I will return to my old business and become a national teacher in a certain court in the south." The old man has a long-term ambition, and it is not a good talk. "Brother Li Ba, does that make you feel better?" Li Ba's face was gloomy, and he was in a better mood when someone poked his heart in front of him. The name Wanyan Laojing, even Huang Man and Gong Yan, did not dare to mention it on Li Ba's side. "Brother Shiman, do you want to have a fight with 1 or 2 Zhejiang warriors? If you have this intention, I can help introduce you for a trivial matter. Now there are just 2 in Tonghishao, and it's a coincidence that they are all mine. Friends, based on my friendship with Brother Shiman, I will spare no effort, but I will also help you build a bridge, and ask for 2 boxings to train each other's martial arts. Shiman, the peak martial artist of the 9 realms, with the roots of the Tao, is a land dragon in Liuxia continent, and that Liuxia continent, with average martial arts, used to have 2 ending martial artists, but now there is only 1 because of the qualifications of the one. The better and higher achieving Grand Master, named Yi Qua, once hurried across the continent to the battlefield in the middle of Jinjiazu to kill the demon with his fists, so he fell. So the Middle Earth Divine Continent, which has liked Zhang Fu's characters the most in recent years, has a cynical statement about Liuxia continent. As for Luxiazu in the northwest, in terms of military exploits, the mountain is not as good as the mountain, and in terms of courage the old is not as good as the young. Sweeping a piece of the former with a stick is equivalent to scolding all the monks on the mountain, including the immortal Qinzhao and all the monks on the mountain. As for the latter, it only targets 1 person, it is the old martial artist who is known as, after entering the top, boxing at the same level without failure, the first person in Luxiaza martial arts. The reason why he has not lost to boxing, of course, is because he will no longer ask people for boxing after he is in the top 10. But it's not the kind of people who wash their hands in a golden bowl and quit the arena, so that Yi Ku didn't even have the idea of asking this person. But Yi Ku, like Han Guanghu, the martial artist of Jinjiazu, who fell a little from the top of the mountain, received an invitation to participate in the discussion from the Zhongtu Confucian Temple but declined. Shiman wondered, apart from Huang Yiyun and Pushun, Wu Shu, the sage of Wu, is also in Tonghishao? Didn't he go to the wild world? Some confidential Shui Mansion newspapers will be sent directly from the Zhongtu Confucian Temple, so they are more well-informed than ordinary sections. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "Let me sell it first," lest Brother Li Ba be in a moody mood after hearing this, frowning and not showing a happy face. "Brother Huang Man, you deserve to be known as a Jade Taoist. He is really talented and beautiful like jade. Someday in the future, when the Mishua peak of Shindu Mountain will open in the mirror, we must invite Brother Huang Man to show the beauty." Face. Thanks to Zhang Xiaoxia of the Dao named Longbo who got it and greeted Brother Huang Man, the weight of the fists and feet of the #1 martial artist in the world, TSK. "Brother, I feel pain for Brother Huang Man when I think about it." Huang Man smiled and said, "It seems that the words of Cui sect master still carry more weight." Cui Dongshan patted his chest and said, "A scholar speaks with reason and words will never fail." Gong Yin smiled charmingly. This beautiful woman was nicknamed A Wu. She was dressed in palace clothes. Combed the cloud bun and slant away the golden steps. Gong Yin only needs to put on a little makeup, and she is already a national beauty. On both sides of her slender waist, there is an ancient bronze mirror and a crystal. But it's no wonder that Huang Man often jokes that it's a pity not to be an empress. Men in this world, young and ignorant of the word chubby, turn their eyes only on the bowtie's face, and miss a lot of charm in vain. To say that the skin is outstanding as a man, the immortal Huang man is actually not inferior to the woman Gong Yan. The men in the novels of the talented and beautiful seem to be carved out of the same mold. They are nothing more than the faces that are like powder, the eyebrows are drawn into the temples, and the trees are facing the wind. Seeing that the boy in white started to act as a demon again. On the way to ride the wind, a thick sea of clouds appeared in front of him. I saw the big white goose, its body turned upside down, the whole person turned forward, and the big sleeves of both hands were swaying forward, and a layer of clouds was casually pushed aside. Shimon concentrated his voice and said, "It's really hard to stay with this guy. I really don't know how Qin Pingon can stand this kind of student." Gong Yin said with a heartfelt smile, "I heard Sect Master Nalen mention the young hidden official earlier, and the evaluation was interesting, saying that Qin Pingon is a stuffy gourd full of bad water. He usually seems to be taciturn, but in fact his mind is full of calculations, but generally speaking, it's still easy to talk as long as you don't provoke him. With such a gentleman, if you find another person who doesn't like to talk, wouldn't it be relatively silent? If you want to say me, you really have to look for Cui Dongshan's escape and liveliness, yes, to reconcile the twilight and vigor between the students, Mr. Harmony." Li Ba suddenly interjected and said, "You are all wrong. On the contrary, the one who is really energetic is the young hidden official who seems to be quiet, who can be called the deep-hearted and sullen, but it is actually this cynical Cui. Sect Master, the former can always maintain an optimistic attitude when looking at the world, while the latter is downright pessimistic, and the two sides are extremes in each other." Huang Man smiled and said, "Li Ba is very accurate in seeing people." A group of people crossed the sea of clouds, and the road between the clouds was like a high wall of snow on both sides. Cui Dongshan glanced at the young man who was following behind, who was given the name Wang Qiongju by Wang Zhu, the word Yusha and the road name Hansu. In short, except for the surname, everything else was related to Shui. Recommendation: Chasing Books is really easy to use, download it here and you can try it. In the team, Wang Qiongju had no sense of existence, and was used by Wang Zhu as a coolie, carrying a bag on his shoulder and carrying large and small packages. The boy's forehead was slightly raised and he was just refining his shape. Among the 5 opportunities in Lizidongshan in the past, he didn't talk about their respective fates, but only talked about the level of their realm. Four-legged snake is not on the top of the table and it is still in the state of Dongfu. Does this have to be enough to eat enough to be reduced to such a field? The only thing that can be said is the big purple-skinned gourd that Wang Qiongju is carrying, with the word catch and release in ancient seal script. Cui Dongshan retracted his gaze and began to ramble. "Sister A Wu, you really don't plan to go to the Yulong sect? You and Sect Master Nalen are old acquaintances anyway. With this level of personal friendship, you can find a chief guest effortlessly. Being a sloppy person who doesn't care about the sky or the land regardless of the sect master, if you don't work hard to get a salary, don't you feel at ease? This is such a good thing that even I am envious." The younger brother thinks that Fairy Yun Xian, who has a weak personality, will only welcome her when she sees Sister A Wu. Since Yun Xian was willing to take the initiative to step down as the suzerain before and run to be a worthy of the name of the law, she must be the arrival of her sister, let alone it's the chief guest secretary, and there are 2. It is estimated that it will not be difficult to abdicate again and let the virtuous, and let Sister A Wu come to be the head of the sect. By the way, there is such a day, and I will bother Sister A Wu to be a month old, and say that I am willing to be the chief guest secretary of the Rain Dragon sect. The salary is easy to say and the meaning is what it means. Besides, the Yulong sect is much closer to the Fuyao continent than the Donghai Sea Mansion, or the Aquarius continent's capital, and the mansion of the vassal King Songmu is much closer to the Fuyao continent. Right now, the elder sister's sect doesn't get along very well. Besides, according to the rules of the Confucian Temple, if there is no new Jade Pure Realm cultivator in the next 100 years, then the title of Zong will be lost. Sister A Wu really bears the heart to see the teacher's family fall into the rut. Wang, the second year is not as good as 1 year? I went to the Yulong sect, and the younger generation encountered something on the Fuyao continent. As long as my sister is quicker in the wind, you don't need to spend the incense that you have saved there, and you can settle the matter by yourself. So, it seems that when Yulong Zong is in charge of the Patriarch of the Law and protects the Old Master, he sits in the patriarchal hall with his younger brother, the chief guest, and listens to the discussions, and at the same time helps the Yulong Zong to form an alliance with our Qingping swordsmen in one fell swoop. Santo, a fool wouldn't do it. Gong Yen was full of slander. This guy is a roundworm in his stomach, he knows everything clearly. The boy in white sighed, his eyes complaining, this metaphor is inappropriate, the roundworms are so disgusting. My brother, I am Sister Awa's close-fitting padded jacket. Huang Man sneered, this metaphor is probably even more disgusting. Gong Yen made up his mind not to speak. She is also daring and pungent, and it is nothing to say a few dirty words. On the Fuyao continent, Gong Yen was once known as a stunner on the mountain, and she never thought that she could not match a juvenile. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, one day I will let Chef Zhu, Brother Dafeng, Chief Zhou and Chief Mi, a few of them get together and chat with Sister Awu, that will be good. Cui Dongshan quickly added a sentence and vowed, guarantee to be both meat and well-rounded, elegant and vulgar. Wang Zhu said indifferently, Sect Master Cui, let's get down to business. Cui Dongshan raised his palm to cover his forehead, looked into the distance and said with a smile, he'll be there soon, he'll have the strength to talk about things when I've had enough to eat and drink. Wang Zhu followed Cui Dongshan's line of sight and saw a green and winding mountain range, like a green snake winding above the earth. She thought about it and had a little memory of this dragon vein on the west coast of Tongye continent and running north-south, but it was a pity that in order to make way for the diverted Dadu, a waterway was ordered by the Dadu Dragon Lord to dig out a waterway, which cut off the complete land dragon energy. As a result, there is no more prosperous and powerful country on the entire west coast of Tongyshao, and most of them become vassals of the great dynasties. It is said that Jiao breaks open, or it is said to be broken by thunder. Cui Dongshan said with an apologetic smile, the reception was not good, so I can only find a nearby place and invite everyone to a vegetarian meal. The place where he settled down was in a royal gym built by an emperor in the mountains. It was completely destroyed by the demon army before. Not long after the new monarch of the small country was enthroned, he ordered the officials of the Ministry of Industry to find the blueprints, which cost a lot of material and financial resources. The temple is repaired like new, and the rest of the buildings are temporarily unable to build and repair. Tao practitioners who are proficient in looking at the air can see that there are two kinds of clouds in the mountains, red and green, floating and lingering. Cui Dongshan said, the Taoist temple on the mountain, being able to let Sister Jigui stay in it, is really glorious. The old and young Taoist priests in the temple revere incense every day, light the lamp at night, and spend more than a dozen sesame oil every year. This sincerity is finally not in vain. In the vast world, the 4 newly appointed water monarchs appointed by the Confucian Temple are responsible for the division of towns and 4 seas, and the newly compiled gods and spirits of the Zhongtu Confucian Temple are from the 1st grade, which is the same as the rank of the Suishan Great God. The entire world of water transportation was divided into 2. Among them, Madame Lushwiking Dandan, whose Taoist name was Qingzhong, was in charge of the land and water transportation of Jiuzhou, but the monks on the mountain did not take her seriously. Except for Wang Zhu, the other 3 sea lords were promoted step by step from the positions of the water lords of the Great Lakes in various continents, such as Li Yeho, the water lord of Jiayue Lake in the Middle Earth continent. In addition, there is a female Hu Jun Lu Roshi, the Yuan Jun of Jingrong Lake Bishui, who is also the Shu Jun in charge of the West Sea. And this woman with the Taoist name Bishui Yuanjun used to put up a reward on the wall of the Dashuan Mountain Master's knife room in the early years, targeting the Mo family ranger Su Rua. The reasons for the twists and turns are unknown to outsiders. Wang Zhu narrowed his eyes and looked into the distance and suddenly said, Sect Master Cui didn't spend any less money over there. Cui Dongshan rubbed his hands and said, fortunately it's just a little Guyu money drizzle. This place is called Hailong Mountain. When the weather is clear, blue sky and cloudless, you can see the sea from the top of the mountain. Watching the sunrise on the sea is a must. Besides, 3,000 years ago, when the dragons in the world were the most beautiful, there were many dragons in the Dada Dragon Palace. Water ministers, walking clouds and rain, many will cross this place to and from the sea and land. The big dragon rain will come out of this cloud and moon, swept across the earth in thousands of miles of water, and gallop in the blue sky. As a take advantage of spending money to help rebuild the Taoist temple, Cui Dongshan not only built a loft to watch the sky at night in the Taoist temple, but also secretly built a special one to measure the flow trend of the East Sea, and to investigate the future water transportation of Dadu into the sea. It can be seen that Cui Dongshan has long been sure that his husband will dig a big ditch in Tongyshao, and he plans for a rainy day, but that's all. There were already 2 people waiting in the mountain, standing at the entrance of the newly built but ancient Taoist temple, but they were all outsiders from the Taoist temple in the mountains. Qingping Sword Sect is in charge of Jianxiu Chui Wei, and Jing Xingfeng's first peak leader Chao Qingqing. The former belonged to Cui Dongshan to be a strong man, but the latter is the key to success. It's here he'll step on it first and you can follow. Cui Dongshan took the lead in hurrying, and suddenly his figure traveled several miles away and fell to the ground. Chao Qingqing bowed in a straightforward manner and said, "I have seen Sect Master Cui." If there were no outsiders present, Chao Qingqing would only call senior brother Cui. Cui Dongshan shook his sleeves and said helplessly, "Junior brother Chao, it's better to learn more about Cui Zhang's rules. You don't have to let me go when you see me. We are still brothers, so we don't need to show the rules to outsiders." Chao Qingqing smiled and said, "It's a rule for myself." Cui Dongshan had a headache for a while. Don't talk. You'll talk about business with people later, you can act according to senior brother's eyes. In fact, Chao Qingqing didn't know who he wanted to see when he was called here by senior brother Cui until just now. Cui Dongshan rubbed his face with his hands and waited for Wang Zhu and his group to land. Although Na Shiman was a pure martial artist, he didn't know much about cultivation, but as long as he showed the real body of an unearthed dragon, he only said that he was a coolie who moved mountains and unloaded mountains. As for the Jade Taoist Huang man, calling for wind and rain is his specialty. Ordinary cultivators really can't provoke xianxia. This old martial artist who has been on the top of the world's martial arts for many years, never easily conflict with others. But as long as the shot, it is not light. Approaching the Taoist temple in the mountain, Huang Man suddenly asked in a heartfelt voice, "Li Ba, you and I join forces plus Shiman to support, 3-1, can you?" As for Gong Yin, forget it, she's destined to be unable to shout. This woman doesn't care about anything other than making money. Li Ba shook his head and said, "Don't be impulsive, you shouldn't have a grudge with this person." Shiman really didn't like this sect Master Cui of the Shinto Taoism, he just felt uncomfortable. But rather than asking about boxing, Shiman really had no idea, so Li Ba didn't agree to the invitation of Taoist Jade, which made Shiman relieved. The group came to the gate of the mountain. Cui Wei was indifferent, as always with facial paralysis. Chao Qingqing looked warm and bowed. "Qingping Jianzong Jingxingfeng Chao Qingqing, I have seen Dong Heijin and all the senior immortal masters." Wang Zhu nodded with a smile. "I was in the capital of Dali, and I borrowed several of your imperial examination papers. They were well written and the words were well written." Chao Qingqing smiled and said, "My husband has given me a lot of advice on the knowledge of craftsmanship." Wang Zhu was non-committal about this, but compared to the coldness when she was with Cui Dongshan, facing Chao Qingqing the junior, her face was a little softer at the moment. Gong Yin and Shiman looked at each other. Damn, finally met a normal person? They came to the Taoist temple together, and the meals were already prepared. When Wang Zhu and Cui Dongshan raised their chopsticks at the same time, everyone let go and ate. Cui Dongshan mentioned that Tong Yezhou intends to dig a great ditch. As one of the initiators, Qingping Jianzong sincerely invites Wang Zhu and Dong Heifu to help and participate in it. Contrary to the expectations of Gong Yin and the others, Wang Zhu agreed very readily. They can't be more clear about the character of the master. Because of the water-holding darts, the high-ranking water gods in the world have appeared a lot, not to mention Li Yeho, a close neighbor who needs to deal with often, even the Mrs. Dandin who has appeared a few times. Wang Zhu has seen it. There is no good face. During the two discussions with Wang Zhu, most of them were Mrs. Tundun with a smiling face. However, it was in Cui Dongshan's expectation. "I mentioned this to my husband earlier. In the words of my husband, if Cui Dongshan came forward, it was only about business affairs, not private affairs, and it was just business and business, then this matter was successful. The possibility of it being more than 80%, it can be said that if Qin Pingan came to reminisce, with Wang Zhu, it will become the possibility of failure, which is more than 80%. Obviously, Qin Pingan has a good grasp of Wang Zhu's temper. The excavation of Dadu was a profitable business for Wang Zhu, without any harm. But for Wang Zhu, since Dadu will definitely appear, she can't take action. Whether she wants to or not depends only on her mood. This kind of choice is similar to that of Qing Tong, who just wanted to lie down and enjoy the happiness before. On the surface it is similar, but there are still some differences. Qing Tong is because of his own selfishness and does not want a sword cultivator to be regarded by her as his own territory. Tong Yezhou, who had meddled too much, Wang Zhu was just lazy. Relying on a brand new Dadu connecting the land of Tongye continent and the waters of the East China Sea, the various water gods of the whole Tongye continent will be based on the original foundation, and lower this East Sea Lord. In the past, the two sides had different identities and had to respect Wang Zhu, but after all, there was a difference between land and sea, and then there was the lifeline of water transportation. More or less they would all be held by Wang Zhu. In short, just wait for Dadu together. Wang Zhu can completely use this surging water potential across the continent to allocate the entire central boundary of Tongya continent to the area under the jurisdiction of the East China Sea. Therefore, after Cui Dongshan briefly introduced various allies, he said, Donghai Mansion must give a sum of money first, no less than 4,000 grain rain money from Baozhai. If you are willing to give more, of course better, the more the better. In addition, I also have to borrow Huangman and Shiman. They help to move rivers and mountains respectively. On the premise of not delaying the water gods escorting darts, as soon as the two sides have free time, they need to rush to Tonggishao land Dianmao immediately. As for the size of the specific credit, we will clearly settle accounts and record them in the temporarily set up Patriarch's Hall. It is agreed in advance that Huangman and Shiman will be specially responsible for the excavation and dredging of a section of the Dadu riverbed. The specific length can be turned back. Let's chat slowly and let's make a general direction today. Huangman and Shiman looked at each other and they were speechless, only smiling bitterly. I was just chatting about whether to join forces to beat this boy in white. The retribution is coming so soon? Wang Zhu said, 4,000? No problem, I can add another 10,000 guyu money. Cui Dongshan had just picked up a chopstick to fasten his dishes. When he heard the words, his wrists trembled and he almost fell back to the plate. He took a deep breath, raised his hand and lightly supported the snow-white sleeve that he named Beating Stupid Place. The chicken pecking at the rice said, Okay, that's it, 14,000 grain rain money. Sect Master Cui felt very sad. People are more popular than dead people. I really don't know how many old dragon palaces, immortal palace ruins and sea specialties have been captured by Wang Zhu in the sea over the years. Wang Zhu sarcastically said, Since Sect Master Cui has so many friends on the mountain, why don't you just ask more people to pay for the shortage? Cui Dongshan laughed and said, You have 14,000 guyu money from Miss Jigue to make a final decision. It's enough. After all, borrowing money owes favor, so the more the better. In the business field, the same amount of immortal money, for example, Baozhai and Zhangji, casually took out 4,000 pieces of grain rain money, and Lu Lao Xianxian of Qinghu Palace in Qingjing Mountain, smashed pots and sold iron to get 4,000 pieces of grain rain money. Look, it's the same amount up, but for that business it's a completely different concept because when Lu Yong gave money he just gave money, but Zhangji didn't. Since he was going to make money he would give money. More intangible resources such as contacts and connections are spent on more money, and Zhangji's burden is still like this, not to mention Liu's and Aizhou. Cui Dongshan continued, It will definitely be a long-term task to dig out a dungeon with stable water transportation, and it will not be completed in a few years. I have to trouble the water government to recruit a group of officials and subordinates who are capable of general affairs, at least 30 people, and then many Narcissus, shrimp soldiers and crab generals are dispatched, with a minimum number of 30,000, and when the water escorts the darts to an end, they will all pass through the waterway at the mouth of the sea and move inland with the water. In short, they can do whatever they can. It was also secretly instructed by Mr. Wang Zhu to do business with Wang Zhu. You just open the price higher or lower and she may find it uninteresting. The 4 sea kings, who each govern all water transportation around the land of the 2 continents, then the height of the golden body in the future, the level of essence, the key depends on the 4 colleagues of Shuijun, who can reach the land side within the rules of the Confucian Temple. The room for operation is extremely limited, extremely limited. The Shengazong where Tianjun Qijin is seated, the Fengshua Temple and Jinwu Mountain are 2 military ancestral homes, the Jiang family in Yunlin, which is located at the mouth of Chidu into the sea, and Luopao Mountain. Yangshan, Yangxiashan, etc. Chidu already has 2 Marquis of Dadu, Marquis of Changchun Yanghua and Marquis Lili Chao Yong, besides Weibo, Jinqing, Fanjunmao, and Yueshan monarchs of 1 continent. Not to mention the land of half continents is the territory of the Dali court. On the other hand, in Tonggishao, the East Sea Mansion obviously has a lot to do. The more the mountains and rivers are broken here, the old immortal mansions have declined, or moved to the colorful world, or it is difficult to mend the old hilltop of the Teacher's Gate or relocate. Really in fact, the only sects who took action were Yuguizang, the head snake and Qingping Jianzong who crossed the river. Wang Zhu and Shuifu intervened in land and water transportation affairs. Not only did they not violate the Confucian Temple etiquette rules, but they could accumulate merit, so Huangman and Shiman just now. Neither of them would ask Wang Zhu what he meant. The 2 of them were sure to go to work as coolies. Cui Dongshan said with a smile, I have to say that first there are differences between land and sea and the customs are different. In the future when we join forces to excavate Dadu, some conflicts are inevitable. In the future, officials of the water government will go ashore to participate in the discussion in the council hall, and each will hold his own opinion. What? It doesn't matter if you quarrel, you can even go out for a fight, but it's better not to cause any fatalities, otherwise it will be difficult to end. Aizhou Lu Zhangji's Baozhai, in fact, it is easy to say that there is a unique golden signboard in the world, not to mention Lu Jubao and Zhangji's way of manipulating people, both of which are famous in the world. I believe there is nothing to make trouble. One moth, only Wang Zhu's waterhouse has the most variables. Wang Zhu said, then let Chao Qingqing be in charge of the specific matters with Shuifu. If there is a problem, it is better to ventilate in advance, and then take it to the council hall to quarrel. Chao Qingqing was a little caught off guard and glanced at Cui Dongshan. Cui Dongshan nodded with a smile. Of course there is no problem, it's settled. Chao Qingqing has just formed pills and is an earth immortal. The matter of going down the mountain can be put on the agenda. Coincidentally, it is not. Then Chao Qingqing can just run a few more times. Going to the Donghai Sea Mansion, familiar with the situation there? It is a long journey by sea. I am afraid that Sui Jun will temporarily lend Chao Qingyang a legendary dragon god cross sea talisman, lest he spend too much time on the road. Wang Zhu nodded with a smile, and took out the long-lost talisman from his sleeve. He said it was a talisman, but it was actually a pocket-sized golden walking dragon. Wang Zhu shook it casually and the band on the talisman was broken, and then gently throw it to Chao Qingqing. You're welcome, I'll give it to you as a congratulations gift to congratulate you on your dan. With this talisman in hand, the monk can enter the water like riding a dragon and walk across the river and the sea. The speed is as fast as that of an immortal. Chao Qingqing caught the talisman with both hands, put it in his sleeves and got up to thank him. Walking out of the hall together, Cui Dongshan stopped under the porch, put his hands in his sleeves and said with a smile, Sister Zhigui, now Qingping Jianzong owns 2 ferries, and there will be more and more Xinjia ferries belonging to us in the future. Are there any? Interested in making a small business together? Wang Zhu said, I'm not short of money, I'm not interested. Cui Dongshan raised his arm, wiped his face with his sleeve and felt aggrieved. These words hurt his feelings, so he shouldn't talk about it more and make fun of himself. Cui Dongshan said softly, the highest is to tomorrow's moon, the highest is to the deep rivers and lakes, and I live in hiding to hold the Tao and raise the true spirit. You might as well watch the changes in the sky and wait for the time. Since it is a real dragon, the clouds and rains will flourish. Wang Zhuma was silent. Cui Dongshan suddenly smiled brightly and said, you must be vigilant when it is transported to prosperity, and you must be calm when the situation is adverse. Of course, this sentence can be said in this way or it can be said in reverse order. Anyway, it sounds good. When the situation is difficult, you will be calm and it will naturally turn around from time to time, and good things will happen again and again. Wang Zhu said, Sect Master Cui likes chatting so much, do you want to drink tea after dinner? Cui Dongshan laughed and said, no, there will be more opportunities in the future, it's better to leave it first. Wang Zhu and his party walked away in the wind. Gong Yin smiled and said, it's a bit chewy to talk about going up and down. It's rare for this Cui Dongshan not to say weird things. The corners of Wang Zhu's mouth twitched up, half a smile, because he didn't say the original words. Under the eaves of the Taoist temple, Cui Dongshan was not in a hurry and reminded with a smile. In the future when you get along with Li Ba, you can be polite in small things, but don't be accommodating in big things. This old guy has a bad temper. He won't go and fight back, so he won't scold him for nothing and he won't fight for nothing. Besides, I suspect that Wanyan Laojing once won over Li Ba. Although Li Ba refused, he didn't take the initiative to inform the Confucian temple. It was just a guess. Wanyan Laojing was dead and there was no proof. He couldn't arrest Li Ba and tortured him. Li Ba had already used some kind of lock. The mystery of the soul that closes the door, or simply erases all this memory. Chao Qingqing, if there is such a thing, what do you think should be done with Li Ba? Although he did not do anything, if he reported the news to the Confucian temple, would Jinjiazi kill a lot of people? Then can we say that it was Li Ba who concealed this matter, and his inaction indirectly who killed those people? Wanyan Laojing's crime of indiscriminate murder, assuming it is 10, how much can Li Ba account for? Let's assume that you can have a 50% certainty, search Li Ba's spirit and ask the truth. Will you do it? If you are hesitant and 50%, what about 80% and 100% certainty? Cui Wei suddenly became nervous. And he was just an outsider who wasn't being questioned. Chao Qingqing said, "If I were Wanyan Laojing and I mentioned this matter secretly with Li Ba at the time, as long as I was rejected, or if I felt that Li Ba just agreed with his mouth, he would choose to be false and reproach, and Li Ba's memory would be erased on the spot and everything would be erased. Traces, Wanyan Laojing is the Ascension realm, Li Ba is just a jade, so even if the latter wants to inform the Confucian temple, he can't do it." Junior brother Chao, of course you are not Wanyan Laojing. Cui Dongshan smiled and said, "We have all read the Book of Sages. It seems that real readers like to embarrass themselves the most." Chao Qingqing suddenly turned sideways, took a few steps back and faced Cui Dongshan, bowing his head in a bow. Not only was Cui Wei confused, but Cui Dongshan also felt strange. What? Chao Qingqing never stood up straight, lowered his head and muttered, "Some senior brothers set up a questioning situation for junior brothers. Sir can endure it, I can't endure it, so I ask senior brother Cui to be merciful." Cui Dongshan stomped his feet and said, "It's like talking nonsense, it's like a slap in the face, you can feel your conscience and talk about it. Little senior brother is the kind of person who can't understand clearly?" Chao Qingqing got up and said with a smile, "I don't care about this anyway, I will quickly tell the husband about this matter, so I think it is a rainy day. If there is a day I will feel bad and senior brother don't want to run." Cui Dongshan was so angry that his teeth were itching and he pointed his finger at this junior brother. "The conscience of heaven and earth, the sun and the moon can be learned. Little senior brother has no such thoughts at all. You are better, you have to create something out of nothing, and then complain to Mr. Are you in a situation like this? What? Is there a junior brother like you in the world? How did you get that sea-crossing talisman in your sleeve that was still warm? You have to go and grab it for you, so you just repay your senior brother? You have to be heart to heart." Chao Qingqing said solemnly, "Senior brother Cui said it himself, walk in adversity calmly." Cui Dongshan froze for a while, shook his sleeves and shouted, "Cui Zhanglu, stop me now or I will pass on the arts on behalf of my teacher." Cui Wei was not stupid and said with a smile, "The family affairs between your brothers and sisters, I am an outsider, so as not to be a person inside and outside." Cui Dongshan's eyes rolled sharply, he stood on tiptoe and put his arms around Chao Qingqing's shoulder. "Senior brother Chao, don't complain, sincerely, I'm begging you as a little brother, and now Mr. The most proud student, sir, is not one of them. If you come out like this again, it is inappropriate, really inappropriate. Chao Qingqing, don't forget, now I am the master of the sect, you are just the master of Jingxing Peak. Even if you don't talk about the friendship between the brothers and sisters, don't make a mistake, I have the true biography of Mr. Take Revenge. Brother Chao, Soke, have pity on me. When my husband finds out about this, he will really beat me into a pig's head. The problem is that I am wronged. Master Chao, little ancestor, do you really want me to kneel on the ground for you? How many times do you kowtow? Cui Wei, don't watch the show, hurry up, step aside and come back when I finish kowtowing." Of course, Chao Qingqing wouldn't really let senior brother Cui do this. He supported his arm with both hands and promised with a smile, "I definitely won't complain." Cui Dongshan was suspicious and said, "I don't believe it, I have to swear." Chao Qingqing smiled and said, "That's fine." Cui Dongshan quickly grabbed Chao Qingqing's arm with his backhand. "Little brother is joking, you can't trust anyone, but you can't trust Chao junior brother. It's time for Mr. to go to his hometown." After Chao Qingqing walked out of the Taoist temple, he looked at the green mountains and green waters in the early spring season in the distance outside the mountain, and suddenly said, "Brother Cui, it seems that whenever it snows on our Luobao mountain, it is always whiter than other places, and when the snow melts, it melts more than other places." Slow. Cui Dongshan was relieved and hummed. Knowing the implication of Chao Qingqing's junior and senior brother, it means a certain state of mind of their husband. To outsiders, the snow-covered mountains are beautiful, but the hardships hidden under the beautiful scenery may be known to him, Cui Dongshan and Chao Qingqing, but no one knows how much hardships there are. How helpless life is, the pain of suffering in vain, the pain of unbearable suffering, it is hard to endure. For a lifetime, it seems that drinking is not drunk, and drinking tea does not feel bitter without returning to the sweet. What should I say? Chao Qingqing said softly, "It's difficult to travel at night, and it's not difficult to keep your head down. I'm afraid that when you look up, you will be surrounded by suspicious eyes like ghost fires, and rumors will be like a raging flood." Cui Dongshan hugged the back of his head with both hands and said with a smile, "We encourage each other." Whether it is complaining or self-improvement, Chao Qingqing is qualified to say these words. How many young people leave their hometown without looking back? Some are ambitious and refuse to look back. But there are also some people who are only teenagers and dare not look back at their childhood. Cui Dongshan was silent for a moment, then turned his head and said with a face full of grievances, "Junior brother Chao, you better swear, otherwise the younger brother will not be able to sleep." It's not that Chao Qingqing can't be trusted, but that Cui Dongshan can't trust certain styles of his own culture. Chao Qingqing smiled and said, "Senior brother Cui is boring to chat like this." Cui Dongshan raised one hand, hooked his fingers towards the sky and muttered dong dong dong, rumbling. There was a thunderous sound in the clear sky. Cui Dongshan squinted at the scorching sun. The sun is hanging in the sky, teaching people not to look straight for a long time. It is said that the sun is the gathering of countless hearts. Sword of Coming Chapter 978. Qin Pingan and Xiao Mo gradually climbed higher. Homesickness is nothing but people and things from the hometown. Then the old cook's table can always make people feast on the home-cooked dishes, which can always make foreigners worry about it, and it will be practical. On the steps of the mountain road, sitting Zhu Lian and a girl in a pink skirt, the old cook waved his hand. Xuanhuan, the master who returned home, and Mr. Mo, who returned to the mountain, gave 1,000 blessings from afar. At the mountain gate behind him, Xianwei helped the boy and Zhui draw Dianmao. The incensed little man stood on the shoulders of the Taoist priest with his hands on his hips, looked at the back of the mountain master and said silently, "The style of the mountain master is really high. The Lord's treatment of people and things is like a spring breeze." The boy in Zhu was very emotional. He lifted his foot and stepped on the shoulder of the priest Xianwei. He was envious. He said that Xianwei, you have come and gone, never thought that there are such heroes in the world. A character with both saints and sages, the helmsman Pei really treats people with sincerity. Xianwei, you have to send it? Qin Pingan asked with his heart. Do you and Bai Jing see the true face of Zhu Lian covering his face? Earlier, Qin Pingan mistakenly thought that the face skin, made by Zhu Lian himself, was just a jianghu skill in the lotus flower blessed land. Later, Qin Pingan carefully studied the few disguised face skins presented by Zhu Lian, only to realize that Zhu Lian used some kind of talisman similar to the mountain. The method, supplemented by the Wufu's true flow, is like a cloud and fog that lingers on the face and does not disperse, and it can actually cover the secrets to a certain extent. The way cannot be said to be more sophisticated, but it is more subtle. For example, Qin Pingan was still unable to detect the truth under Zhu Lian's two-layered skin when he was in the Jade Pure realm before, so this time, we should ask Zhu Lian for advice. This means that the Lotus Flower blessed land in the past only talked about pure warriors getting involved in cultivating immortals, and Yu Zhini of the Hushan school of Songlai country may not be the first person in the true sense. Zhu Lian of the Jianghu generation is the one. Xiao Mo replied, "If you observe carefully, it's okay to come, but Mr. Zhu doesn't want people to see his real face, which must be some unspeakable difficulties." Xiao Mo naturally does not want to spy on his own. As for whether Bai Jing is looking at each other without authorization so offended Mr. Zhu, Xiao Mo doesn't know for the time being. Qin Pingan looked strange and said, "I guess it is rare for Bai Jing to hold back his curiosity and not find out." Xiao Mo wondered, "Why did you say this, young master?" Qin Pingan said in a complicated mood, "It's not interesting to not talk about this. It is no exaggeration to say that, looking at the two worlds, the only person who can make Qin Pingan fight against the enemy, involuntarily take a few steps back, seems to be only Zhu Lian, who exposed his face to show the truth. You must know that on the Sword Qi Great Wall, together with the 14th throne of the wilderness, including the great ancestor of Tuoyue Mountain and Wenhai Zhoumi, they never let Qin Pingan take half a step back. When Qin Pingan and Xiao Mo approached, Zhu Lian stood up and said with a smile, "I'm busy preparing dinner so the sun will return." The girl in the pink skirt whispered, "Master, didn't the rice grains go home together?" Qin Pingan smiled and said, "She took the Fengyuan ferry home with Zhang Lu Changming and the others. I disembarked at the old dragon city with Senior Song of Sheshuguo, and we walked a distance of mountains and rivers together. After that, I went with Song. Seniors parted, hurry up, but come here first. Wait a moment, Xiao Mo, would you please pick up the right guardian?" In this way, Qin Pingan has been tirelessly specializing in this matter. Before, there was the 6-step stance of Shanshan Fist, but now it is the sword light escape method that Ning Yao knows and can master at a glance. The sword light is splendid, as if the afterglow is scattered into a splendor. In the night, the bright moon is gathering snow, and the moonlight is snowflakes scattered. Whenever Qin Pingan's figure occasionally stops in the sea of clouds, dozens of sword lights are condensed into one place again. I always feel there is a very apt analogy: the stupid bird flies first. Xiao Mo smiled and nodded, "Okay." As soon as he talked about millet grains, Xiao Mo, who was already gentle, became more gentle. Qin Pingan joked, dinner later, we can wait for Xiao Mo and the right guardian to come back together. By the way, say hello to Xianwei and the right guardian of the Dragon Lane, and have dinner together. Xiao Mo hurried on his way, first swept to the mountain gate, invited Xianwei and Zhu Yi Boy to go to Mr. Zhu's house for dinner, and then went up the mountain after about half an hour. After that, Xiao Mo's body turned into a rainbow and disappeared in a flash, thousands of miles away in an instant. If there is a sea of clouds that can be used as a ferry, the sword light is even more swift. Luxiazu is estimated to be far inferior. Thinking of this, Qin Pingan inevitably coveted the Xinjia ferry, which is known as the fastest in the world. I don't know when will Luopao Mountain have a Liuxia boat? However, Luxiazu doesn't seem to be suitable as a long-distance commercial ferry. It consumes too much money from the gods. Most of the top sects use it as a facade. For example, they hold celebrations and specially pick up some highly respected and distinguished mountain monks. In Julien's house, Qin Pingan had nothing to do. He sat on a bamboo chair under the eaves, weaving an unfinished bamboo basket, next to a rattan lounge chair. When there were no guests, the old cook would lie there. Here on the rattan chair, you can enjoy the coolness in summer and enjoy the snow in winter. Julien went to the kitchen, put on his apron, and was already busy. It was rare for the young master to have dinner together, so he had to cook a hearty meal. Back then, when he and Xiaoheaton left the blessed land of his hometown, Pei Qian wanted to ask the boxing with the four of the picture scroll. Julien once said that he was the best cook among the cooks, and the best cook among the warriors. The money is too happy and Julien is let go. It's boring to win and it's impossible to win. Later, I heard that Julien has the reputation of Zhu Lang banishes the immortal, in the rivers and lakes, and also has the nickname of the noble sun. Pei Qian almost rolled on the floor with laughter. Those fairies in the rivers and lakes are so blind you have to have never seen the world. Plus how much heart, to be able to shout Zhu Lang face to face with the old cook who was a crooked melon when he was young. It is better for Lao Wei to be more honest and sincere, and to talk about this in private. Accompanying Pei Qian to think about it, Lao Wei said that he guessed that Julien was very rich at that time. He was very rich when he was young, and he was a son of an official who had read a few books. As soon as a man has money in his pocket and is a talented man, he looks handsome in the eyes of women. Pei Qian thinks it is very reasonable. Old Wei doesn't read much and has a lot of knowledge. Xuanhuan sat aside, his voice soft and waxy, talking to his master about the recent situation on and off the mountain. In fact, the god of Erbao on Luopao Mountain, the famous right protector, can only rank second. The leisurely and trouble-free time always goes faster. Before I knew it, after about half an hour, Xiao Mo brought back Zhou Li from the Fengyuan ferry, and landed at the gate of the mountain. Going to climb the mountain for dinner with the boy and Zhou Li jumped up the steps, his face full of joy, the two thin yellow eyebrows like two small benches, sat side by side full of villains who went out to sunbathe sun, either relatives or neighbors, happy, excited. Go home. The boy and Zhu climbed the mountains and said cautiously, Deputy Helmsman Zhou, I met with the mountain master in front of the little one and we talked. The mountain master saw that I was a little diligent and worked a lot, so he agreed to me. Regarding the matter, the newly established Chief Dharma Protector of Riding Dragon Lane is finally in the spotlight. I am willing to recommend me to take up this position. What is Deputy Chairman Zhou's advice? If you and Mr. Pei, both of you feel that I still need to continue to be on the right side of Riding Dragon Lane. I have studied for a few years in the position of the Dharma Protector, and accumulated more contacts and qualifications. Then I will take advantage of the opportunity to eat at the same table with the good person, the mountain master, and bite the bullet and refuse this matter, even if I am misunderstood by the mountain master. At any rate, it is better than after I took office the virtues were not matched and the things I did were not well-rounded, and in the end the mountain master was suspected of being unknown, and then I would be guilty of a big crime. Officialdom is very complicated, but it's not that as soon as the top speaks, the bottom will be able to take a firm seat. If you have a backer, you need to be yourself. Xianwei rolled his eyes when he heard the words. How do I feel that I have been in the arena for many years, and I have been involved in the left guardian of the Dragon Lane? Zhou Li slowed his pace, pulled the rope of the cotton satchel, frowned, thought about it seriously, nodded and said, We are good mountain masters. Very few people personally recommend who to hold important positions. Do you have confidence in yourself? The boy in Zhu Yi's face lit up. Yes, why not? I am willing to go through fire and water, not to mention the general guardian of the Dragon Lane who only cares about the left guardian. he has the confidence to be a small helmsman with a newly established sub-rudder. For example, in the state city, some cronies and confidants with excellent personal qualities and outstanding abilities are all subordinates in the Chuzhou landscape officialdom. Just like raising a flag of a well-deserved general on the battlefield, he can immediately build a whole set of imitation xianxia, and he can pat his chest and feel his conscience. Strong generals, capable officials and officials, all of them are well-informed and easy to handle, and they only talk about collecting all kinds of espionage for the helm, and there is absolutely nothing to say. It was just this move which was suspected of overstepping a bit. It was known in advance by President Pei and Deputy Chairman Zhou, and it was easy to find trouble. It was misunderstood whether it was because the official hat was too small. How dare the boy in Zhui move to the stage early, and those who have made a big deal don't want to be in the public eye. Just like the landscape genealogy of Zhui boy who was secretly included in the bamboo tower lineage, it was recorded in the book, but in fact even the old ancestor Lingjun, who was regarded as the minister of the dragon from the Luobao mountain, has not been able to join it so far. Can you talk about this kind of thing? Shouldn't I be beaten to death by the ancestor Lingjun who was able to walk in Beiju Luzhou? It is said that whether Patriarch Lingjun can record his name on the genealogical ultimatum is still in the investigation stage. The key is that the deputy helmsman Zhou once recommended it once, but he was beaten back, saying that it will be discussed in the future. At a dining table, Qin Pingan was of course sitting in the main seat, and Zhu Lian and Xiao Mo sat opposite each other. Xianwei took the initiative to invite xuanhuan to sit on a bench, and Zhou Mili sat next to the old cook. The boy in Zhu Yi was the most special and could not sit on the bench, so he was able to sit at the table. The little guy carried a fingernail-sized wine jar. Just drink some glutinous rice wine. On Luopao Mountain, Daoist Xianwei has a good impression on everyone, but he still likes xuanhuan the most. There is no one. The reason why I complained on Qin Pingan's side before was because that girl Xie who was confused, provoked xuanhuan. Otherwise, Xianwei, a person who believes that he has been in the arena for many years, why should he do such a superfluous thing that is easy to be hated by others? After Qin Pingan was seated, he took a bowl of rice from Nuansh's hands. Seeing that everyone didn't move his chopsticks, he smiled and said, "Don't be stunned, move your chopsticks. Are you still polite here?" Qin Pingan first gave Nuanshu a chopstick for spring bamboo shoots and fried meat, and then put a chopstick of steamed apricot perch for the millet. Zhu Lian smiled and said, "It's good to say that the bamboo shoots are available at home, but this apricot perch is rare. It is the first-class river fresh that ordinary immortal families can't eat, or the master himself caught a few fish in the jumping river. The master has been we didn't want to eat it, so we kept it in the ice tray that was specially used to store ingredients. This kind of food was eaten by the sea base all the year round. This is why the meat is so delicate and steamed. That's it. If it's braised, it's a bit of a waste. You all have to try it. If it's delicious, it has nothing to do with my cooking skills. If you think it tastes average, then I'll have to reflect on it." Qin Pingan laughed at himself. "It's not all close to you, and I can't bear to enjoy the happiness alone. Those of us who like to fish and catch good things with great difficulty, why not walk around the village twice?" When he was a teenager, Lu Xianying often did this kind of thing. He even took Qin Pingan along and walked back and forth between Xinghua Alley and Mudping Alley. Looking back on it now, it's really shameful. Millet grains have always been eating very fast. Hearing this, he pretended to chew carefully, shook his head and gave Zhu Lian a thumbs up. "It's delicious, it's really delicious. The old cook's craftsmanship is the icing on the cake." Xianwei just picked up a chicken leg, and when he heard this, he quickly picked up a large chopstick with apricot flower perch. He has heard of this kind of fresh water for a long time. Try it? What is the best thing in the world to put on a show that you can't even think about? Money? The boy in Zhui was born in a small incense stick. In fact, the food is not delicious. He has no interest in it. Anyway, he can't taste whether it is good or bad. Just because he often comes here to eat, Nuanshu specially prepared it for the boy in Zhui. Just a small oil dish, just put a chopstick dish into the dish. Compared to ordinary people, it is equivalent to a large table of meals. Zhu Lian chatted about something. "Sir, now there are several gates surnamed Qin who have moved from Huaihuang County to the state city. It's like an appointment. It's just over the new year, and now they're busy re-editing their genealogy. I want to have some kinship with the young master." Well, these news are all inquired by our guardians on the right side of Long Lane. The boy in Zhu Yi whispered and complained, "This kind of trivial matter is also worth talking about when you bring it to the dinner table, old cook. It belittles Luopeishan and despises me." On the old cook's side, the little guy is not so strict in his speech. Once Zhu Lian is easy to talk, there is no taboo. Moreover, although Zhu Lian is the big housekeeper of the entire Luopao mountain, he is indeed a high-ranking person but he can't control himself. The officialdom of Kalongxiang and Zhulu has been promoted. It is better to manage the county officials now. It's ridiculous to please everyone, which means that no one pleases so as not to give the impression of a flatterer to President Pei. Xianhui said with a tsk, aren't you the same disciple of Taoist Master Jia? Zhu Lian ignored the unappreciative Zhu Yi boy and continued to ask, what should I do about this matter? Shall I go and say hello to both the state and county yamen, and let them come and help stop it? Otherwise, those as a music maker who does things after receiving money, his writing will not be vague. When the world was good, the profession of making a genealogy was not seen in the past. Most of them were poor literati who had no fame. They would make a living and only dare to make money secretly. Now it is different. The southern part of Beipingzu there are all over the country, and many have switched careers to do this craft. Qin Pingan shook his head and said, don't worry about it, what is your love? The boy in Zhu Yi decided to be the loyal minister and he said bravely, Sir Shanju, this kind of thing can't be ignored. If you're not careful, the uncles and uncles in the state city will be like bamboo shoots after the rain. A lot of them will pop up overnight. Of course they don't dare to come to Luopao Mountain to show their elders. It's just that there are so many people in the state city. If I trust the younger ones, I will go down the mountain after dinner, I will communicate with Bachelor Gao. All the county town temples and land temples under Gao Qinghuang, there are my good friends everywhere, they don't communicate with Gao Ping very often, I still have a little friendship with me. After all, the relationship between Zhou Qinghuang and the people on the other side of the city has been handled in detail over the years. I do it myself and I don't dare to be vague at all. Besides, we are justified on this side of Luapa Mountain. It's not a fake public welfare activity, ill speak, keep and kill this unreasonable evil spirit. Qin Pingan explained with a smile, it's okay, you don't have to be so inspiring, some of them, my ancestors, are indeed close relatives, distant relatives who no longer communicate with each other, and relatives in name. If you are like this one stop, it is easy to cut things across the board. It is estimated that even these portals dare not ask people to revise the genealogy. They can't let them deliberately erase the names of my family's ancestors. It is said that I made a special trip to the prefecture for this matter. 2 sets of Qin surname portals greet each other separately, and it is not wrong anyway. There are not many family trees with their own surnames, so other family trees do not have more than one line of Qin family, and they are all random. The boy in Zhu Yi was silent for a moment, then said in a daze, the good-hearted mountain master's mind must be as big as 100 Gao Ping. The book chasing app recommended to me by an old book friend who has known me for 10 years. It's so easy to use, I rely on this reading aloud to pass the time before driving and before going to bed. You can download it here. The little guy who was sitting cross-legged for fear of being misunderstood by the mountain master quickly raised his arms and put his fingers together. You can swear to God, it's definitely not a slap in the face. President Pei said, her master is unique and upright, so in her life she disliked the flattery of others the most. She often taught her, the pioneering disciple, that if she wanted to get along in the rivers and lakes and be friends everywhere, she had to be honest. A spit and a nail. This kind of cheats in the rivers and lakes, that can't be bought by $1,000, how dare a boy in Zhu Yi put his left ear in and the right ear out, he must keep it firmly in his heart. Qin Pingan glanced at Nuanshu and asked, did Pei Qin teach him? The girl in the pink skirt pursed her lips and smiled, neither complaining to the master nor lying. Qin Pingan has a habit. As long as he is in Luopao Mountain, he never delays eating when he drinks. In his own wine shop in Jianqi Great Wall, he often has a bowl of wine and a bowl of xianxia noodles. Xiaomo said, young master, I heard that Baichang on the Beiju Luzhou side has officially closed down not long ago. Qin Pingan asked with a smile, who is the guardian of the Tao? Is there any news out there? Xiaomo shook his head and said, I don't know. Baichang, the first person of the Northern Sword Immortal, has been in a bottleneck for many years in the immortal realm. What's more, Baichang and Tianhuan from Dogwood Peak in Xinjiang, the junior sister of Zhou Zi, if it wasn't for Qin Pingan and Cui Dongshan's cross-cutting, it is estimated that Beishang's Ascension realm, although the road is not right, is equivalent to calculating the kendo luck of the entire Aquarius for nearly 1,000 years, but at least Beishang's kendo will be more pure. The future achievements of swordsmanship will only be more lofty. In the final analysis, good and evil are people's hearts but not heaven's hearts. Qin Pingan said casually, either Baichang has hired an immortal he can trust and can fight to help protect the customs, or this is a fake news. In fact, Baichang is already in the Ascension realm, waiting for the rabbit on purpose, waiting for someone man destroys his good things. Because of the relationship between Beisheng's only direct disciple Su Xian, he had a very tense relationship with Xiaoyang, the sect master of Qingliang sect, and even publicly released a very heavy and cruel remark, so that Xiaoyang would never want to enter the Ascension realm in this life. Then, with Xiaoyang's temperament and methods, if Bai Chang really did retreat he would never stand idly by, and this sect master he's wrist is definitely not bad, and he is the best at evaluating the situation. The turmoil in the Ghost Valley, especially the shot of the ghost in Jingguan City, Gaoqing, is the result of Xiaoyang seemingly doing nothing but doing everything. Xiaoyang treated guests like this. Of course, Qin Pingan was not polite to her. He quickly reciprocated at the accompanying city. Cultivation in the mountains. If you want to be more clean, don't get too involved with the world. Blindfolding method, the possibility of ecstasy formation is more likely. Julien smiled and said, if I were someone else I would be afraid that Bai Chang would be in retreat, which is not false at all, but Bai Chang is confident that he will successfully break through the border and exit the customs very quickly. This is the most troublesome thing. It's not possible to get in the way, but it's just waiting for the rabbit. During the retreat period, breaking the Tao of others is the taboo of the mountain. Even if someone has Tianjun Xieshe as an ally, once Bai Chang makes a sword this time, Xieshe should not be blocked. If one is not careful, even if someone can escape this questioning sword pursuit, the sect's foundation that cannot be moved, I am afraid it will be difficult to protect. Qin Pingan nodded. However, intuition told Qin Pingan that Xiaoyang would definitely take risks for such a once-in-lifetime opportunity to delay Bai Chang's breakthrough and become a sword cultivator in the Ascension realm. Now it depends on the chess skills of both sides. Xianhui wondered, who is someone? It sounds very powerful, and it can interfere with the retreat of a great sword fairy? Or is it equal to being an enemy of half a sword cultivator in the Ascension realm? Endless calculations with each other? Julien smiled and didn't speak. Julien, who was accustomed to sitting cross-legged on the bench, raised his wine bowl and took a sip. Qin Pingan didn't want to say more about the matter, and changed the subject. How is the situation in Lotus Root Blessed Land? Julien put down the white bowl and said, it's a bit miraculous. I just said that not long ago in the Songlai Kingdom, there was a local temple that was not built by the imperial court. The incense was worshipped, and finally the golden body was impregnated, and he was able to appear and manifest his spirit. Although the golden body of the water is not high, according to the golden and jade genealogy issued by the Dali court, he has just entered the rank of Qinglu, and was transferred from Su. Officials, although they are incomparable to those gods of mountains and waters, it is the first time in a blessed land that the gods who are not anointed by the imperial court, bear the incense of the people, and then show their spirits in gold. Xiaomo nodded and said, it's really a good thing to have 2 and 3 again. Xianhui was stunned. What? You guys still have a private blessed land in Luopao Mountain? Good Qin Pingan, Qin Dashan Master, can really pretend to be poor. No matter how rich you are, you must learn how to walk in brocade clothes at night and ride thin horses for senior officials. Besides, this kind of thing is also hidden from me, thinking that I am a fake Taoist priest who has not given the ultimatum, so treat me as an outsider, right? Qin Huanshu smiled and corrected in a soft voice, Master Xianhui, we are us. Xianhui smiled bitterly, yes, it's us, we are in the mountains. The boy in Zhu didn't need anyone to remind him, he raised his fingers again, I swear that everything I heard at the dinner table today will be hidden in my stomach, and I will keep my mouth shut when I walk out of the mountain gate. Xianhui thought for a while. With his status as the gatekeeper of Luopa Mountain, and his own shallow Taoism in Beipingzu, if he went to that blessed land, wouldn't he have to pretend to be a Taoist priest and immortal? It was supposed to be. Qin Pingan asked, how about Chao Yingxiuxing and Chao Yang's practice of boxing on the back of the mountain? Are they all going well? Julien nodded and said, Chao Yin's aptitude is good, although she has not broken through the realm, she has already touched the bottleneck of the Sevuing realm. Chao Yang's roots are heavy, she is willing to endure hardships, and she is quick to learn boxing. She will soon be in the 5th realm of martial arts. It is a manufacturable material. If he can, I think Chao Yin can actually practice martial arts. Wait until Chao Yin becomes a cultivator's golden core or a martial arts golden body in the future, then he will make a choice and there will still be some profit. Parting ways, but actually reconciling with each other, and being able to form a pattern in which the lake water does not violate the river water, is even more of Chao Yin's good fortune. If a Qi practitioner wants to practice martial arts and be successful in his studies so as not to go astray, there are two extremely difficult thresholds to cross. In addition to his own qualifications, he must either have a unique family background or be able to find a teacher with the guidance of a master, and at the same time, there is a complete set of personal teaching methods and Taoist secret books in the Immortal Mansion as support, both of which are indispensable. In this way, let alone Aquarius Island, even if you look at the vast world, there are not many such mountain gates, which can be called one of the few. Even if it is his own Luobao mountain, he would not dare to say that he has found a stable path. How do others learn the way to climb the mountain of my son? Another example is Chongqiu, who is now not only a pure martial artist who is the bottleneck of the distant travel realm, but also a hidden immortal, and also a Confucian Qi trainer in the strict sense. Way to go. However, Chongqiu's cultivation path is still difficult to be imitated by others, because he is too particular about his state of mind. In the past years in the blessed land of lotus flowers, the national teacher Chongqiu was already known as the Wu Zong Xuanhuan sage. Chen Pinggan intends to put Chao Qingqing next to Chongqiu, which is a kind of expectation from his husband to the proud students. He hopes that Chao Qingqing can be better than the blue. Go further. Chen Pinggan said slowly, I had a question boxing session with Yi Yunyun at the exiled immortal peak in Shindu Mountain, and she didn't deliberately hide her secrets, so Pushen Yunkatang was transformed from the mysterious boxing path of those immortal pictures. I still understand a little bit. Besides, Yi Yunyun's Yunkatang has always been open to the public. Except for the boxing method passed down by the ancestors, I am willing to spread boxing for martial artists from all over the continent. Besides, I have some experience. I just plan to do it in the near future. It is compiled into a book, and a copy may be given to Yi Yunyun in the future, and our Qingping sword sect is now an ally with Pushen. I believe that as long as the disciples of Pushen's genealogy travel to Aquarius, they will definitely come to Luopao Mountain to visit. The bridge acts as a connection, the boxing principles are naturally similar, and the two sides can better each other's martial arts. I am worried that Chao Yin is late in learning martial arts. The true meaning of this boxing method I figured out is not perfect after all. A person walks into the patriarch's hall from a side door, and it is easy to carve a scorpion and turn a tiger into a cat. If one is not careful, it will delay a good seedling. Zhu Lian smiled and said, Young master, just feel free to teach boxing, I'll just keep an eye on the next thing. Qin Pingan raised the wine bowl, go one. In fact, Sun Yuanji has been taking this path for a long time, but Zhu Lian taught boxing and preached the preaching, and the number of paths was too obscure, so she has been kept in the dark. This is also the fundamental reason why Sun Yuanji is clearly qualified and so diligent in boxing, but he is not happy to break through. You must know that Zhu Lian's own boxing technique in the Lotus Flower Blessed Land is already known in the world for its speed of breakthrough. Qin Pingan didn't say anything about it. Anyway, it's a good thing for Sun Yuanji. A pure warrior, the better the foundation, the higher the achievement. There are Sun Yuanji first, then Chao Yin. Zhu Lian intends to use more successful cases to help Luopao Mountain pave a new mountaineering road. There are fewer passes, lower thresholds, and wider roads. I can't really think that he is just an old cook with an apron. He cooks 3 meals a day himself, and it doesn't take much time, so he has to find something to do. Wei Xian asked curiously, Master Qin Shan, you said Yi Yunyun, but that Tong Yezhou Huangyun? Qin Pingan nodded and said, it's her. Why, Taoist Xianwei has heard of it. Xianwei grinned and said, I once wandered around a Xinjia ferry, and I heard a lot of people say that this female martial arts master likes to wear yellow clothes to walk down the mountain with high boxing skills and a better person. Qin Shanju, this is in the field of competition. Is it a win or a loser? A few years ago, when I was still wandering on the rivers and lakes, I found that the monk of Aquarius Island, only a few people would have a few good words about that Tongyi's Hao, which had a bad reputation. The suzerain was Wei Ying, the great sword immortal, the old immortal Lu Yonglu in Qingjing Mountain, Yao Jinji, the majestic Dequan Empress, and the legendary Huang Yun. Qin Pingan smiled and said, it was a draw. The boy in Zhui said suddenly, that's a win. Xianwei wondered, how did you come to the conclusion? The boy in Zhui looked at an idiot. Sir Shanju always has a style of demeaning himself and raising others, so I need to ask? Xianwei Taoist, what's the matter with you? Otherwise you can teach Pei to be like this on the rivers and lakes. A well-known good apprentice? Qin Pingan felt that there was an opportunity to remind the great disciple of Kaishan, and he touted his master like this. I would be ashamed if you didn't blush. Although Millet didn't chat much, she was definitely the happiest one. When the Goodman Mountain Master is not at home, gather with the old cook to eat together, It is lively and you will not feel deserted, but the good man mountain master is not at home. It seems that something is wrong after all. I can't tell the truth anyway. The good man mountain master is at home just the best. Xiaomo suddenly said, "Thank you for the dog, I will solve it." Julien smiled strangely. Xianhui is used to eating with a bowl, so he raised his head now. Solve it? Why does it sound weird? If Mr. Mo hadn't spoken, if someone else said such a thing, Xianhui would have thought it was a murderous jianghu slang. Qin Pingan teased, "Forget it, if you can't beat others you will definitely not be able to drive away." It really irritates her. Miss Xie will distance herself from you and Luo Pashan, and simply pay for it out of her own pocket and throw money at her. Buying a house in the town and settling down, or if she is more cruel, she will buy one of the 3 mountains near Luapa Mountain, Tiaoyu Mountain, Fiolu and Chindu Peak, and become neighbors with us, then she can be justified. Sitting on the roof every day staring wide-eyed at the scenery on this side of Luapa Mountain, do you think it's a good idea? Xiaomo was devastated for a while, and by Jing's style was not a possibility but a certainty. Millet Grain caught the key at once. So that girl Xie who just arrived by car is so rich? Nowadays who wants to buy a certain mountain in the western mountains, the price is not cheap. In the past, when Pei Qian was a small black charcoal, she thought about saving money all day long. One day she would buy the Chindu Peak without frowning, and the other party made an offer. After saving enough money from the gods, I secretly bought Chindu Peak first, and then on a certain day in a certain year I told the master about it and wanted to give the master a bigger surprise. As for which day it was and why it was bigger, Pei Qian didn't tell Zhou Mili. Now Zhou Mili felt that he was naive at that time. Every few days he asked how much Pei Qian was missing, and it was annoying to ask Pei Qian. As a result, for a long time, Pei Qian was not willing to take her stubbornly. But Zhou Mili was wronged and handed over to the piggy banks kept by Sister Nuanshu. Pei Qian ignored her for a day, and she did not add troops and horses to her gold and silver mountains for a day. Later, for some reason, Pei Qian took the initiative to accompany her on a mountain tour. On the first trip, she hurriedly drove a little Qianshan, camped in Anzhai into the capital and successfully joined forces. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "He is indeed a very big landowner. Xiaomo is full of helplessness, Bai Jing is indeed rich, and they are in the ascension realm of the same age." In terms of strong family background and ability to make money, Bai Jing may be second only to the one who once worked with the accountant scholar, to make abacus and partner to earn money. Someone with money. Qin Pingan turned his head and asked, "Xiaomo, why didn't she go up the mountain with you today?" Xiaoma said with a headache. She was busy going around the town to post signs. She used to go to Fulu Street and Taoya Lane. She felt that there were a lot of rich people there. As a result, I was caught in Taoya Lane 2 days ago and I was almost beaten. The other party heard that she was a guy at the New Year's shop in Kalangxiang, so he didn't care about her. Julien smiled and said, "If you really want to do it, you can push and shove at most. Miss Xie will definitely not fight back. Maybe she will accidentally slap her foot or hit the wall, and then return to Qilong Lane with a bruised nose and a swollen face. Show Xiaomo a good look at how much she has been wronged outside." Xiaomo smiled helplessly. This kind of thing, today's Shiego can really do it. Can't be said that she was joking. In the final analysis, Bai Jing, like his Xiaomo, used some kind of ancient secret technique to strip out a smaller Bai Jing, with a relatively single personality. After Xianwei heard about this, his impression of the sable-cap girl changed a lot, so she was so willing to make money at Xie, she had to give her a thumbs up and call her a friend. In the eyes of Daoist Xianwei, who is used to living in poverty, the most helpless thing in the world is just 2 words, no money. Qin Pingan glanced at his doorman, feeling complicated. "You have no money now, but the first coin in the world, if the records of the Confucian Temple are correct, seems to have been minted by you. At the beginning, as the money to buy the way to enter the Liju cave, it was bought with the Dali court to welcome the spring, to support, and to win the 3 kinds of gold and copper coins. I don't mention it myself, I only say that the copper coins themselves are of excellent quality, which has long been highly praised by everyone in the famous spring of Aquarius, but on top of this carved mother money, there is still more unique, ancestral money, the ancestral money that spends money on snow. Must be in the home of Liu's family in Aizhou. As for the Qi practitioner, it has always been a mystery what appearance he chooses to show. In the prison of the Sword Qi Great Wall in the past, the criminal officer Hao Su was accompanied by 2 maids who had the status of master and servant, but they were more like fellow Taoists of their own cultivation. Qin Pingan met them for the first time. Was by the stream. There was a woman in a trouser's clothes and a little huanxia. She is the maid next to House's eldest disciple, Du Shanin. She goes by the pseudonym Jiqing and is the incarnation of the ancestral money of Guyuqian in the world. It's just that Changming and Jiqing, in terms of Daoling, are still a little far from the first coin in the world, Xuanhuan. In the process of raising the rank of lotus root blessed land before, in the process of smashing the gods and money like rain, Zhang Lulong life was the most keen-eye, and due to the blind date on the Tao, she was the first to discover a piece that could not be revealed in the mountains and rivers picture scroll. It was a woman with an ethereal figure in the human world of the blessed land. She was secretly flipping through a book in a scholarly family on the border of the northern Jin kingdom. This woman, who was temporarily named Scholarly Fragrance by Ji Sifeng, was named by Ji Sifeng. The whole world is condensed from the literary and literary incense. She belongs to the manifestation of the Tao in a certain sense. There are several worlds, a total of 72 blessed places. There are well-documented ones. Together it seems that there have only been 10. 7 similarly exist. Julien smiled and said, I have received a lot of invitations on the mountain recently. All of them are kindly inviting you to be a guest outside with all kinds of excuses, all of which can be compiled into a book. In short, there are all kinds of strange reasons. Many it's still the Xianfu sect with no friendship at all, and there are some southern mountain monarchs. I don't pay attention to them. As for some people who are quite familiar with our Luapa mountain, as long as the matter is not urgent, I will arbitrarily advocate for the son to politely decline. For the rest, I will reply to a letter, saying that the mountain owner is temporarily traveling away, and the mountain owner needs to decide by himself. Those invitations have been collected. I will let the warm tree move to the bamboo building. There is a small basket which is important. Yes, I put them all at the front and the son has some flips to look at. A cultivator, if he spends too much energy on these things and wastes his time without talking about it, it is easy to drain his mind, and it is extremely exhausting. Chen Pingan nodded, took a sip of wine from the bowl, looked soft and said softly, maybe for Luo Pashan and me, it's just a lot of secret letters and invitations that are troublesome. For the host who issued the invitation, no matter what their respective reasons are, it can be roughly determined that for them, it must be a rare event, otherwise they will never send a letter to Jiaisfeng Jianfang easily, so you can decline the invitation, but don't think the wording on the invitation is ridiculous. Zhu Lian immediately restrained his expression and said solemnly, only your son can say such heart-to-heart words. Chen Pingan originally wanted to give a reward, but when he saw Yuan Shu nodded vigorously, Xiaomi began to applaud silently. Xianwei is even more sincere, and Zhu Yiboy feels that he has heard some teachings from sages, and only hates that he has no pen and paper at hand. There are only a few people at a table. So Chen Pingan had to swallow that word back in his stomach. Wei Xian asked curiously, why didn't Bai Xian return to Luopao Mountain together? What did he do in Xindu Mountain? Chen Lingjun and Bai Xian are very familiar with Xianwei, but the two sides are still a little different. Chen Lingjun likes to ask questions and chat about melon seeds. Bai Xian doesn't talk much. They all carry only a purple sand pot with wolfberry tea. Every time they arrive at the gate of the mountain, they ask the Taoist master Xianwei for some advice on the rivers and lakes. It is obvious that they need to lay a foundation for the future trip down the mountain. Isn't it just to draw an invincible hand with people asking swords so that the spectators on the side will cheer? Chen Pingan smiled and said, this uncle stayed there to practice swords. Now it is like someone urging him to break through. He will not return to the sword platform for the time being. It is estimated that at least he is in the Dragon Gate realm. Bai Xian is willing to take the initiative to move his nest, otherwise he will have no face to come back. After a dinner, Yuan Shu and Xiaomi helped clear up the dishes. Chen Pingan left Zhu Lian's house, went outside the bamboo building, and sat alone at the stone table by the cliff. The gray mountain in the north and Chen Pingan, who was facing the cliff, turned their heads and looked at the moment. The Chindu Peak on the left is a close neighbor. It is closer to the Luopao Mountain than the Jumping Fish Mountain in Fiolu, but it covers a vast area. The Huiming Mountain has been taken into the bag by Luopao Mountain and has become a vassal mountain, but this Shindu Peak with a great name has always been owned by a central immortal mansion whose mountain gate was similar to that of the Huangliang school earlier, and it is the same as the belt. The peaks are different. They never interact with Luopao Mountain. There are not many monks in the mountain. There are only a dozen people. They like to live in seclusion and stay at home. Dante. If it was a monk from the two mountains, the tops of the mountains at each station were relatively distant, and the Luopao Mountain was higher. Therefore, Shindu Peak does not hinder the broad vision of the top of Luopao Mountain. Chen Pingan's figure turned into a dozen sword lights, and he came to the top of the mountain, stood on the railing, his arms folded, and looked at the town to the east in the twilight. The lights were dim and Qin Pingan had a panoramic view of those streets. In the small town before, young and strong men and some old bachelors were all willing to take the mud bottle alley, even if they took a detour. As for the peers who are about the same age as Qin Pingan and Song Jisin, they are actually not willing to walk in the mud bottle alley. They occasionally pass by the mud bottle alley, with words like family reunion. One is the orphan who killed his parents, and the other is said to be the illegitimate son of Song Duzhao who was thrown outside. Every New Year's Eve and the first day of the first lunar month as well as the Qingming festival, the town's various surnames, each door and every household, in addition to the tombs of their ancestors, will have their own common ancestors' tombs that need to be worshipped in incense. The town's surname Qin, of course it's not a big surname, not among the 4 surnames and 10 clans on Fulu Street in Taoya Lane, but there are several branches. When Qin Pingan was young, he used to go to the grave with his father to worship his ancestors. When someone bumped into them, those men surnamed Qin, who were originally called wives, uncles according to the folks, didn't look very good, but because of the ancestral rules passed down from generation to generation, they did not stop the descendants from giving them to the old man. The principle of hanging paper on the ancestors' graves did not say anything ugly, but on the first day of the first month of the first year, Qin Pingan found that the paper hanging on the New Year's Eve yesterday had disappeared. It was thrown into the field below the grave. The child did not care about being sad, jumped off the field ridge, carefully picked up the discarded red paper, and was at a loss for a while, wondering if it would be taboo to repress the hanging paper in his hand under the gravestone, but if he just took it home and worry about breaking the rules. A helpless child, standing alone in the fields for a long time, not angry, just empty in his heart. After that year, Qin Pingan only went to the graves of his parents. Between fields, between heaven and earth. Qin Pingan sat on the railing, took out the sword-raising gourd, raised his head and took a sip of wine. Julien's house, Xiaomo and Xianhui and the boy and Zhui were all left behind. When he had nothing to do, Julien brought a chess pot and played chess with Xiaomo. Xiaomo learned chess very fast, and his chess skills were so powerful that he could achieve a realm a day. The boy in Zhui was about to sit on a chess piece that was lifted from the chessboard. Xianhui smiled and picked up a chess piece from the chess jar and put it on the table. The boy in red clothes asked what. Xianhui laughed and said that you were talking too much. What kind of onion are you, dare to be so presumptuous with the new chief protector of Riding Dragon Lane? As for the rebellion, the boy in Zhui started bickering with Daoist Xianhui, making a lot of noise. Xianhui remembered that Huangyun again and asked in a low voice, "Old cook, how beautiful do you think that Yi Shanzhu is? Do you think if we saw her, would we be tempted?" Julien smiled and said, "I don't think so." Xianhui sighed, "We're fine here, but there are few strange women." Julien sighed, "It rhymes quite a bit." Xianhui tugged at his collar. If Xiaodao hadn't had a high vision, how could he be single until now? The boy in Zhui burst into laughter. "Just you? Xianhui, if you are old one day, it is not the face of the old cook. It is estimated that you are not as kind as the old cook." Julien smiled and said, "What about me?" The boy in Zhui pretended to hiccup and turn the pages. The moonlight in the spring night, the light clouds and mist, is always a place for young people to have fun. It's a pity that the old man is not too young, and he has not yet settled down, so Xianhui Daoist is a little worried. He can't be alone all the time. Look at this old cook, he is a not very good example. The talented man is the prime minister in white clothes. The prodigal son walks through the flowers and is always romantic. Julien twisted the chess piece in one hand, scratched his head in the other and said with a smile, "The most rascal in a hurry," with a young man turning his head white. Julien also turned away from the mirror and secretly exchanged for cherry red and plantain green. Xianhui chewed on the meaning and asked tentatively, "Old cook, when you were young, did you also have a very touching story of men and women?" Julien said solemnly, "A gentleman who has read the book of sages and sages will not fight with women casually." Xianhui smiled and said, Like me. The boy in Zhui laughed until his stomach hurt. "Like Gao Ping, you both are like." By coincidence, the three of them looked at Xiaomo at the same time. Xiaomo felt helpless and said, It's like. When Qin Pingan returned to the bamboo building, he found that Nuanshu was guarding the door and said with a smile, "I have the key." Qin Nuanshu was stunned on purpose and Qin Pingan smiled, "It's okay, I just went into the room and sat down for a while." The first floor of the bamboo building is spotless. There is a pot of verdant iris on the desk. It is not an immortal family property. It is a warm tree that was relocated from the mountain stream in the early years and is well taken care of. Previously, the of Jiui Mountain, in order to congratulate his husband on restoring the position of the Confucian temple, also gave a pot of calamus, but it was Wenyun calamus. Of course, it is not an ordinary thing. It can condense a droplet the size of a fingernail. This pot of Wenyun calamus was donated by Qin Pingan to the girl in pink skirt. Now she is responsible for taking care of it carefully. Half of the Wenyun's pure water droplets are left in the lotus root blessed land, and the remaining half is left to Qinhuanshu. In the mountains and streams there are long rivers, Longshu River, Jefu River. Just because it is a long-lasting cultural gain, there is no immediate possibility, so the price of Jiui Mountain calamus will not change on the mountain. The sky-high price, of course, the pots of calamus with 3,000 years of Tao age, have to be calculated separately. Qin Pingan took out stacks of books from the objects close by, which had already been classified into different categories, and placed them in different positions on the bookshelf together with the warm tree. In the same way, both have obsessive-compulsive disorder, but Qin Pingan is not as serious as the latter. Finally, Qin Pingan gave Nuanshu a stack of books. The girl in the pink skirt held the book in both hands and bowed in thanks. Nuanshu planned to leave without disturbing the master. Qin Pingan brought a chair over and said with a smile, "Read a book with me for a while." She put the book on the table temporarily, picked up another book, one big and one small, and read it together. Qin Pingan suddenly smiled and said, "It's good that there are not many people on the mountain, and the warm trees don't need to be too tired." Thinking about it this way, the mountain master's anger was relieved about being dug up by his own students. Otherwise, Sect Master Chui thinks that some things can be turned over here. That would be too naive. Qin Wanshu hesitated for a moment, then said softly, "Master, Sect Master Chui sent me a letter, saying in the letter that you will be home soon. Let me say hello to Mr. Zhu, cook more carefully, and also I made a list, wrote your favorite dishes, and at the end of the letter, I told me not to tell me about it." Qin Pingan smiled and said, "Go back and find him to settle the account." Nwanshu hesitated, but Qin Pingan said, "What if he guessed what he dares to say and thinks I will settle the account with him? Forget it, or let you not be embarrassed, I will pretend to do everything." "Have no idea." Nwanshu smiled shyly. Qin Pingan laughed at himself for no reason. "Actually, I don't know how to be this gentleman. I'm worried, very worried." Nwanshu raised his head, thought about it, and smiled sweetly. "Master, anyway, Sect Master Chui knows how to be a good student, so he can worry about it as well, but don't worry so much." Qin Pingan was stunned. "That's right." There was only the sound of flipping books in the house, and Qin Pingan said casually, "Nwanshu, do you occasionally worry about the state?" Nwanshu raised his head and blinked. Qin Pingan smiled and said, "I have to make a statement, not to urge you to practice, but to worry that you have an idea, and I am embarrassed to speak. I am a mountain owner, and I often go out and don't stay home all year round. It's really outrageous, so I thought ask your thoughts. If you don't have such thoughts, then let them go. If you have, don't feel embarrassed. I will think about the strategy first today, and I can start preparing tomorrow to ensure that it is safe and sound." Nwanshu hurriedly shook his head and waved his hand. "Master, no need." Qin Pingan smiled and rubbed her head. "Then don't worry." Nwanshu smiled brightly and continued to look down at the book. Pei Qian, Chao Qingqing, Mr. Zhang, Tsin Yuanji. All of Luapa Mountain. In fact, the master sees it in his eyes and puts it in his heart. Of course, there is that lazy guy who likes to slap swollen faces and make fat people all day long. The room on the first floor of the bamboo building is small, but there are many treasures. In addition to the painting at the time, presented by Wu Shuangjing on the wall, at the Neihiguan market, a bright and prudent ink stone was presented by the little monsters, and there was also a landscape with a thin meaning presented by Lin Qingqing, the guest of Chio's family in Yuzhou. Leo Kengshin yellow badge. At this moment they were all placed on the desk by Qin Pingan. During the discussion in the Confucian temple, Zhang Ji opened the bungalow in the Parrot Island. Qin Pingan had no cash at the time, so he owed some debts to Lu Qiqing and Mrs. Yan Yan, and also bought some favorite items. As for all kinds of mountain treasures that should not be placed in the study room, there are not a few. For example, in Beiju Luzhou, the Suoyun sect Yangyun Peak, it is not just kindness but difficult, and obtained a Sanlang Temple spiritual treasure armor, a soldier's golden armor. There is also the white jade Ganoderma lucidum sent by the immortal Yunpi of Jianghu. In addition, in Shuilongzong, the northern sect Master Sun Jie gave a pair of bull-roared fish, and at the southern sect, Xiao Jingji gave a midge called Xiamagio on the mountain. Before Yezhou they were given to them respectively. There is also the Jun Qingyu Xiang jade card given by Li Yuan, but unfortunately it has been given to Fan Junmao, otherwise it will be given to Qin Lingjun as a congratulatory gift for Luopao Mountain's Guardian Mountain and Zhua Fa, or as a gift for Qingping Sword Sect. The enshrined old Mama Chiu is a good choice as a return gift. I don't know how long it took. Qin Huanshu read about half of the book, got up quickly, took the book and left. Qin Pingan said that he was going to take a walk and sent her back to the house, only to find that the millet was standing upright. As the door god, Qin Huanshu quickly apologized to her, Xiaomi grinned, and the two little girls waved goodbye to Qin Pingan together and went to chat. Qin Pingan returned to the bamboo building and sat on the stone table by the cliff again, pretending not to know, and after a while he turned his head and looked surprised. There was a little lotus figure sitting at the table, just jumped out of the soil, then jumped to the stone table and finally jumped to the stone table, sat at the table, supported on the ground with one hand and shook his legs gently. Qin Pingan smiled and put the little guy on his shoulders and looked into the distance together. He was old-fashioned and told the little guy some interesting things about this trip. One spoke carefully, the other listened patiently, and Qin Pingan finally murmured, "I've gone home and am fine today." You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.